Welcome to the Select Board meeting for Monday, January 9th, 2023. Happy New Year, everyone. Call to order at 6:36 p.m. First topic of business is discussion regarding the recycling center proposal. Does everyone have one of these, or is this the only one?
We all have one.
Okay.
Yep.
So the estimated costs for the kind of, I don't know, maybe generally most inclusive design that we came up with. So does this include, I mean, is maybe it's the first item, I guess, the base binder and top course. Does that include all the work needed to make it a horseshoe, I guess, clear and improve that area as well as pave the?
Right, with our staff doing the work.
Okay.
The only thing this may not yet include if we were to open that fence up into a second.
I was just going to ask a second.
Say that again?
Remember we had talked about adjusting the entry point to open the fence up and take down the tree and make a sort of like a in one location, swoop out and come out. Right now it sort of goes in on one and it does like a horseshoe.
That's what I'm talking about. This doesn't create the horseshoe from the road, from Public Works Boulevard.
That's the second entrance is the one thing I don't have the clarity on yet. I'd have to ask Glenn just for clarification on that piece if you already worked that into this estimate.
Okay.
But
I know the tree clearing and some of the
Right.
dirt work was stuff we would do, but
correct.
does the kind of
Tonnage
base
wise,
and
right.
paving
Tonnage wise,
include
there
it?
should be enough. I just don't know
For
if
both? For all of it?
because it's not that much of an adjustment from the tree width from where it ends today, or where that space is not a large area. We're doing all the earthwork. As you noted, the cost of removing the trees, opening the fence, and doing that work is something that we were going to do in-house. I just don't know if he was phasing it like we initially discussed and just getting the estimate based on assuming we were doing it in two phases, or if he was looking for an all-encompassing quote. What would it be if we did both phases at the same time?
Yeah, the square footage though, you're talking
Nominal.
60, 80
Yeah.
square feet to complete from fence line to, I'm assuming where he has it turning on a 90 and coming back around
Right.
and out the same entrance.
Because then you'd end up with a circle and two
You have a circle-
verticals, basically, right?
Right.
One on each side,
Right.
connecting it and then a loop. And then,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is what it is now.
And this doesn't include a heated shed or some sort of building
It does not currently include
or electrical.
which is why I was assuming it was still in the phased approach, as we talked about.
So about 80, just shy of 84,000.
Right.
87? 86, am I wrong? 40, 60, 86, 8, 86, 8, 80, 8, 88, 6, there we go, 88, 6,
88,
that's
6.
what
I
I'm
wrote
trying
it
to
down
say.
as 83.6, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're right. I forgot about the
Dropped to 5?
5,000. Yep.
So I was going to say, round it up, it's easily 100 for
Yeah.
contingency,
Right.
and it's probably not enough. So maybe if that's not included, we're talking, I don't know, whatever we want for contingency factor, 120, maybe,
Sounds reasonable. Yeah, I mean,
Need a little bit more asphalt, maybe a little bit more
a
groundwork,
20%
maybe.
contingency, yeah.
And then whatever a building and electrical as a next step, in theory.
Right.
And if we are doing a phase, then if we don't use the contingency and that gets worked in, if there's leftover, that can be applied to it.
Yeah.
I mean, in the time being, we can use a vehicle as opposed to a shed. I mean, if they have a vehicle that they're not using or it's
Yeah.
heated, it's, keeps you out of the weather.
Right.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
And jog my memory, containers and/or dumpsters were mostly probably provided. Is that what we were thinking, depending on the type of material? So it wasn't purchased.
It could
per
be
se?
either. You know, so the current proposal includes 4 of the Connex boxes, assuming we were going to purchase those 4.
Oh, right at the bottom. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But the dumpsters.
And we own one of our roll-offs and we rent the other one right now. So there was a conversation about would we want to buy all of them at once, or, and mattress is one example, if we were to,
Right.
to have a service provider responsible for hauling the mattresses off the state contract, if part of that service was to
Provide.
drop a box every time they picked up a box that was full, would that make more sense as a rental rather than purchasing ours and having ours taken away and then brought back?
Right. So where do we want to go from here? Do we want to get an idea on what the next phase would be, so we have a whole cost picture, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of going for it, just because it's one of those services that has been a town service for so long. I'd like to see us move forward with it, and continue offering those, or move to be able to continue offering those. So I'd like to see the complete package, and then maybe get that forwarded to capital to see if it can, how it falls into that mix.
Yep. Did put it on the radar last week, so
Yeah.
during the meeting, just that we were working on it, but we didn't have numbers, yet. So, okay. I think something else. Oh, and then there's going to be a budget implication too. Maybe just
Correct.
drafting out what we think that might be, just as a.
And we were talking,
especially if it's implemented. I mean, it was a couple days.
it was 2 4-hour blocks, and the discussion was that typically you would see 2 staff attending, 1 out roaming, making sure that it's
Assisting.
going where it is, and 1 assisting customers when they show up.
Okay, we can put together an estimate for that,
So about 16 hours a week.
approximately, yep.
Yeah. Probably a weekend and a
Yeah, one
afternoon,
weekend
even
and an
slash
afternoon,
evening,
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we'll have the superintendent kind of continue that, finish
Okay.
wrapping up the picture of what that looks like, and probably makes sense to put together a capital request at this point, I think, right? Based on when he gets the whole picture, all the totals, make sure this includes the other entrance, kind of the whole thing, and then he could break it into 2 phases on the request, just as an option if needed from a budget
Okay.
standpoint. And bring it to us, and we'll see if we're
Next
ready
meeting,
to
see
give it a
where it goes.
blessing and put it forward.
Okay, we will do so.
Thank you. I didn't put it in order like I did the week before. Why don't we jump down to review of the Family and Medical Leave Act policy draft? Any concerns, questions, comments since our last review?
I believe it was just the 1 change, correct? In the very
Right.
first paragraph,
Correct.
Referencing the prior.
referencing the correct prior. Yeah. I have no concerns.
I have no concerns.
I don't either.
I make a motion to approve the family and medical leave policy, policy ADM-181, effective January 9th, 2023.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Jump down to review of remote work policy, second read.
I have no concern.
Brian, the only question I had is nothing specific in the policy. It's more about practice. Does this policy adequately address the current practices that we use? Or would this be a fundamental shift on how we're implementing remote work now?
It wouldn't be a fundamental shift. It would be a formalization of what we've tried to put into practice. I think every work relationship has probably had a variation of this and maybe lacked that formality. And I think there was a concern about continuing the practice without formality.
Got it.
I think both on the employee side and our side, that both parts of that relationship want to see this formalized into a documented relationship.
Okay.
With that being said, I do think, and I've had some initial feedback from employees who currently are working in a remote capacity, but I do think that maybe a broader, if you're okay with it, a broader circulation of the draft to a few other departments just to get some more feedback, just to make sure that we've tried to think of everything. We're never going to make it perfect the first go, but trying to make sure that we've thought of this from as many different vantage points as possible.
On dot 15, domestic care, that first sentence is a may not, shall not, in the same sentence, in a row there. Just
Okay, I'll make that change.
any other questions or comments on that one?
No, to answer your question though, Brian, I wouldn't be opposed to broadening the eyes on it and get some feedback before our third read,
Okay.
if possible.
Agreed. And especially, I mean, any department heads that haven't seen it, and some of the staff that had to, administratively work from home during COVID.
That's what I was-
A significant, if not almost exclusive amount of time.
That's what I was thinking.
Those are the ones who experienced it, and this isn't meant to be an all the time, but as a understanding what that concerns and
Okay.
other challenges around that are. Make sure they're all covered.
Okay, we have an upcoming staff meeting, so I can send this out and then give folks a week or so to review it, and then have that meeting with them and bring that feedback back to you at your next meeting.
The only one under equipment too, and I'll reread it one more time, but I don't think it calls out not using. I mean, with the exception of like connection, phone and internet, using personal equipment for access. And I don't know if we want to, but if it's a work from home, I think we would. I understand. You have like elected officials and things who are just doing that anyway, and that is just the nature of it. But if it's an employee who's working, we should be providing most of the laptop, whatever, phone, that kind of thing, outside of a landline and internet. Maybe I'll think about how to word that, or if you think of something.
Okay.
Don't think it quite covers it. And if we don't have enough time for feedback for the next meeting, we'll just carry it to the following one whenever we're ready to. I'm not sure how it lines up with our schedule. So.
Should work out, but I'll keep you posted on what I get for feedback.
Okay, good?
Good.
Okay. Let's see, review of the proposed cemetery commission bylaw. read this is, but it's definitely not the first one. It just doesn't say. So I don't know how many times we've visited it, but we've been here already.
We got this language back in the summer. I want to say maybe August, after you and Town Clerk Newton met the first time. So I haven't changed the proposed language since that review.
Well, I can add that I'm in favor of rescinding Article 25 and voting for, on the floor for MGL 114, Section 27.
The only thing on duties, number 2, second line, to appoint the staff, or isn't it? Something. 2.
2-point staff for the care
Two.
of the cemetery.
Okay.
Are you suggesting?
Yeah, no,
striking
I'm
that?
okay. No, it was reading funny to me, but I think just me. It's fine.
Are you okay with the commission having appointing authority to do that?
If it wasn't the board acting in,
Right.
it's a good question. Don't usually.
Right. Because we could always change that to say to work with the select board to appoint staff.
Or recommend appointments to the select board. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think starting out with a recommendation, we can always amend this. Well, it's a bylaw, you don't really want to have to amend it.
Well, it hasn't been amended since 1949, so you're already making.
I'd like to change it once, not,
Beyond statutory authority, appointment generally
Has to be,
always falls
yeah.
to the board. We don't usually delegate it
correct.
Right.
historically.
Right, right.
Doesn't mean we can't, but
No, I
I don't know
like,
if there's any reason to change it today.
I think I would fall on being in favor of it falling under the select board.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll just change
So
that to
modify
a
that.
recommendation, recommend appointments for staff to the select board. And then because we have it, you don't even need to define that we do it because we have it statutorily. We have appointment authority.
Right.
right.
So you don't have to define that we do it.
Okay. But then we'll keep the other duties, division of lots, issuing of deeds.
Mhm.
Okay.
Sure. They want to issue deeds, I'm all for it.
Yeah,
So are we good to move that forward to the next special annual whenever we decide as an articles?
yeah, I am.
Put it on
I
the,
am.
put it on the list of things.
Mhm.
Okay. Agreed. And we will pass over meeting minutes. Let's jump down to calendar year 2023 business licenses. So we have some late license renewal requests. Businesses are up to date and current. Any questions or concerns with them?
No?
None.
Make a motion that we issue Class 2 and automotive repair and sell secondhand vehicle license to Accurate Automotive, 21 Leicester Street, expiring December 31st, 23, and a auto and marine repair license to Johnson Auto and Marine Service, 97 Mountain Road, also expiring December 31st, 2023, with an issue date of tonight for both.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Review and approval of the 2022 Alcoholic Beverages Annual Report, the renewal certification, and the 2023 Seasonal Population Estimation Form. So our annual report for calendar 22 shows our 5 license issued, fees collected, a total of $1,925, and no violations that we are aware of.
Make a motion that we approve the alcoholic beverage licenses annual report 2023 for calendar year 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I was going to say you have a copy there.
Yeah, we
Okay.
have it here.
Okay.
Did I just?
You wouldn't let me put it in the packet as part of the
That's right.
pages, so
the
it's a
other.
separate.
Yeah, it's the other attachment.
Right.
So the 14B, the renewal liquor license renewal application. That's the guidelines. So our renewal certification for 2023 for Erving is. We have to populate that.
Nobody failed, so you report whether somebody failed to renew or.
It's
nobody-
only the not. So it's
Right.
blank.
It's blank because everybody renewed.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I feel like there should be a, and those that were
Wouldn't that be
issued
nice?
or something. Yeah. Okay. Any concerns?
It just feels really
Feels-
odd to approve something that's in the negative, but that's fine.
Says nothing.
Says
Right.
nothing. But I'll make a motion to approve the renewal certification for 2023. Yeah, that's it.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's also in the folder.
And the seasonal form. So 2023 seasonal population increase estimation form, stating that as of July, we expect our population to be approximately 1,800 people, also known as no seasonal adjustment from our standard estimated population. Any concerns?
None.
Make a motion that we approve the 2023 seasonal population increase estimation form.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Review and issuance of the 11th water commitment for FY23. Make a motion we approve the 11th water commitment for fiscal 23 in the amount of $560 for testing of backflow prevention devices.
Second.
Any discussion?
None.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll sneak one
So
last
you
one
got-
in here.
You
We're
got 2
almost
minutes.
there.
You want to cram in a bunch of
Depends
deeds?
on what clock we're looking at, but we'll do issuance of cemetery deeds numbers 575 through 582. Any
If you want.
concerns or questions on
I
them
I have
before
some
we?
concerns.
Okay, before we issue.
My concern is issuing deeds to individuals who no longer live in Irving. and who, in a situation where we are
Limited.
limited in resources in the current cemetery, and need to still look at a second site. And although I don't want to be unsympathetic, we can't always have everything that we would like to have. And I understand the issues and concerns, but I think it's a question of us saving those sites that we have for town residents. And I think that should be a policy and procedure if it isn't already. Having said that, I see the paperwork and that it's gone through the clerk's office and that it has been signed by the clerk. And the folks who came forward for the request for the lots did it in good faith, and in good faith they gave their funds, and so in that situation I'd be in favor in continuing with that process, but moving forward I would make a motion that we not continue to give out sites for the cemetery to non-residents.
Can I ask that we table that motion till later tonight and come back to that discussion, if you
Yes.
don't mind? And
Yes.
if you are
Yeah,
not, sounded like you are okay with moving forward with these ones?
I am,
Okay,
for the reason that I stated.
right, understood. Is that good with you, Scott? So
Yep.
we'll issue these
Yeah.
now, and then we'll come back to
Yep.
that motion to change that practice in the future, later tonight. I understand, and I think right now they're very real concerns. Back up to the first one here.
Would you like a motion?
Yeah, if you'd like to give that
It's
one a whirl.
It's a long one, and I
That's
want
fine.
to thank Mr. Newton for reviewing it all and putting it in a very nice, neat format, so we're not scrolling through 18 pages of deeds. I appreciate that. So the motion is to issue the following deeds to the right of burial in Erving Center Cemetery. Deed number 575 for lot number 357A to Deborah Ann White and Raymond James Mayhew Jr. And deed number 576 for lot number 357B to Deborah Ann White and Kathleen Ann Mayhew. Deed number 577 for lot number 357C to Deborah Ann White. Deed number 578 for lot number 357D to Deborah Ann White and Daniel Richard White. Deed number 579 for lot number 358A to Deborah Ann White and Paul Frederick Mayhew. Deed number 580 for lot number 358B to Deborah Ann White and Amy Kathleen Mayhew. Deed number 581 for lot number 358C to Deborah Ann White and Cody Dean Mayhew. And deed number 582 for lot number 358D to Deborah Ann White and Bernadette Theodore Marks.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
To make sure I have enough ink to sign all those later.
I'm sure there's more pens out there if we need them. Okay. With that, I will call the joint meeting with the Finance Committee to order at 7:06 p.m. Welcome. And we will start with review of the FY24 budget requests. And first up tonight is Board of Health. Leo, would you please join us at the center table? You are the first contestant.
Good evening.
Welcome. Lots of changes and
Huh?
lots of changes in your arena this
been
year.
lots of change at all year. They really have. Now, how would you like me to start? I mean,
Yeah, so if you'd like to talk through first FY23 kind of highlights and challenges,
okay, sure.
and then looking forward to what is kind of the goals and initiatives in 24, and then we'll look at the line detail on the budget and do some Q&A on any of the changes.
Okay, sounds
Okay?
good.
Thank you.
Well, we have something written up here. My other two board members could not be here this evening. They both been called into work tonight. Some of the highlights and challenges, accomplishments. The board has been successfully using the previous funding to address the ongoing abandoned and dilapidated structures in the town of Irving. To date, all previous receivership properties have been resolved. The public health nurse, through the COG, continues to assess the town providing open clinic hours at the Erving Senior Community Center, home visits, and vaccination clinics. They continue to provide monitoring through the MEVA of the regional commutable disease, including COVID-19. The town has continued to supply free at home costs, home COVID-19 testings for residents. With this, some of the challenges, the health agency continues to address ongoing complex cases, vaccinations for the seniors here in the community center. Providing an event also has several call-outs. Some of the things that we want to do in the town of Irving in the coming months is to, next couple of weeks we have a meeting. We're looking at doing some kind of CPR and first aid classes for the residents of the town of Irving. That's going to be a big thing. People can sign up. We'll be working on that with Tom and a few others to try and get people just for the town of Irving first. I think it's something that we need with all this, everybody getting older and be necessary to have that taken care of. With the support, also with the support of the Select Board, the Board of Health has hired a current health agent through the town of Irving supply appropriation budget, benefits ongoing, the towns of Eastern Franklin Health District, and through the intermunicipal agreement. Hope I'm doing this right here. Did you want me to talk about the hiring? Okay.
Any questions on current stuff before we move on to goals and initiatives?
Goals and initiatives. Okay.
Okay.
Goals and initiatives.
For FY24. Go ahead.
Okay. Some of the goals that we're looking at in the coming years is the Board of Health will continue to address all abandoned and dilapidated structures through the receivership program. Level of funding is sufficient for that goal. The Board of Health will continue to utilize the public nurse provided by the COG. Level of funding is sufficient for that goal too. The Board of Health will support the town initiatives in updating the town's software. So see below, we'll be requesting $2,000 for that. The Board of Health will seek increase in community engagement and support of health and safety, offering educational opportunities for the residents in the town of Irving. The Board of Health will continue to fund COVID-19 management and support residents through the state and federal grants. Any questions on that?
Any questions on that?
No.
Okay.
So looking down at the budget detail.
Well, with that, we got one more thing here.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I skipped one, so. With the support of the
No
Board of
problem.
Selectmen and the Board of Health has hired a current health agent through the town of Irving to supply appropriate benefits and ensuring a partnership among the member towns of the Eastern Franklin County District through a new intermunicipal agreement. Those towns are Irving, Northfield, and Shrewsbury. Let's see here. On
So-
January 2nd, we had a meeting, the Board of Health had a meeting, and we'd hired Claudia Santa, S-A-R-T-I, as the agent for the town of Irving and town of Northfield and Shrewsbury. And she started Tuesday, today. She's going to work 27 hours a week through June 30th, 2023, at which time the Board of Health will be reviewing her hours and finding out what her schedule has been through that 6-month period to see if we should increase it or keep it the way it is with her on board. Get an idea what's happening in the town, in all 3 towns. Yep. Do you want me to talk about the salary too, or just, there's a salary base. She's starting out the budget. Okay, I'll give you the budget now for the district, for the town. The full budget's going to be around, for the 3 towns, $72,272, which would be divided by assessments through the town of Irving, Shrewsbury, and Northfield. We will hope to be meeting the last week of the month with the full district to go over their assessments, what's it going to cost them, what's it going to cost each one of the 3 towns. So then we'd be able to come back with a budget. The last, if I'm correct here now, the last time in 2023, the 3-town budget was $75,973. We're looking at 72. So I'm hoping this is right as of right now. So we think so, then, Brian?
Everybody,
Yep.
everybody likes to go in that direction.
Yep. So go ahead.
Is what the chart's showing you?
72 or 92?
Yeah, so,
What?
So that's the
yeah, I was
confusion.
going to
There's
clarify that, but go ahead.
There's new lines in the Board of Health budget that have not existed in previous years, and so those are highlighted in blue. Those are trying to incorporate the line items that would have existed in the district that we've been paying into.
In the assessment?
Correct.
Okay.
And so for the town of Irving, you're seeing the reduction of $30,000 in the Board of Health line item and the expenses, because that was paid out as a contract in the past. And now we're incorporating the full cost of the district into our budget. So it is increasing significantly, but the understanding is that the Oversight Board has a assessment portion of their activities. So money will be coming in from Shrewsbury, money will be coming in from Northfield to pay those 2 towns in their respective portions of this budget. Yeah. So it's just a shift in our thought process.
But it's not going to total 72 because there are portions of the health budget that the towns will pay directly, right?
Correct.
Correct.
So
Correct.
this isn't our original assessment, and it's not the full budget.
Correct.
It's
Correct.
the portions that Irving is managing and what Irving actually incurs.
Correct.
We will do, we'll do bill out for
Yes.
reimbursement billables
Right.
for services outside of Irving.
Right.
For staff services.
Yes.
Right.
The only additional cost really that is in this one will be if the employee opts into health insurance
Benefits, yeah.
benefits. Yeah.
But that'll be incorporated in the assessment calculations, even though it's not in this budget section, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So we will come up with, that has to be estimated, so we'll come up with an appropriate estimate for that.
Right.
And attribute that back out to the 3 towns by the proportion that
Right.
each town served. Correct.
That's what I said, Brian, right?
Yes.
That's what I said.
I heard every word of it. Yep. We've been discussing this for months, so.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so,
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's not simple.
yep.
And maybe I'll just add high level for those who aren't aware. So the changes basically, Town of Irving is taking on being the employer for the health agent for what today is the district for the 3 towns, and will then receive assessments to compensate for the portions as the assessment formula works from the other towns for the shared services piece that the town is managing. Asset, benefit, salary, those sorts of things. And I think if I'm not mistaken, from what I've heard, the other thing is in the next couple months we may hear back from the district about making some adjustments to this slightly as you kind of flush out the details looking forward to next year, because
Yep.
it's just happened 5 days ago or today,
Yep.
or 7 days ago. So
Yep.
anyway, that was a lot. Questions, concerns?
None, but just for clarity, the hiring of the agent is the current agent, it's the formality of Erving doing the hiring. Claudia is currently the agent that serves
Right.
for the town of Irving.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Just
Yeah,
for
sorry.
those,
No,
you
that's
know,
good. That's good.
that we
Yeah.
didn't just randomly go out and do a whole new hire, and this is the first anybody's hearing of it. This is our current agent for over 4 years. It's just a formality of, she's now an employee of the town of Irving.
And so we're taking the lead in the district as the
Yeah.
treasurer and employment functions of the district.
Yeah.
So the difference in budget, Brian and or Leo, is probably not actually any. It shows as 25 here, but after receipts, assessments, those sorts of things, it might be closer to 0. Is that a fair statement? Because assessments will offset,
Irving's portion.
Irving's portion.
in terms of Irving's overall costs and budgets, because we'll receive receipts that'll offset the change in budget mostly.
So the question's going to go back to the oversight board. That's the meeting that Leo's referring to at the end of the month, to look at the current proportions that are assessed to each of the towns.
Okay.
And just to make sure that what has been in practice for the last few years still holds true, and if that's no longer accurate, that may need to be adjusted. And then the only other changes, to Scott's point, any insurance considerations that we have to move into this, that wasn't part of the previous structure.
Right.
So that would increase for all 3 communities.
But yeah,
But it's not 25,550. It's something very small in comparison,
it's
because the
probably
majority of
closer
that
to
comes in
8,000. About a third of that.
surely from primarily benefit change
Yeah.
you're talking about? Yeah.
Right.
And if there's any assessment change, it may shift a little bit, a few thousand, but
Correct.
it's less than half of that
Yeah.
Correct.
overall. Thank you.
Anything else?
Questions, concerns?
None.
No.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, I just would like to make a statement if I could.
Yes.
The last 3 or 4 months has been really, really, on the Board of Health, really rough in trying to get all this stuff, the financing, all this stuff. And I just want to say one thing. If it wasn't for Brian, I don't know what we would have done, honest, because neither one of us on the board has the knowledge and the expertise that he has. And I just want to I know. I just personally want to thank him. I really do. We got a great man working for the town of Irving, and he's helped us immensely. He really has. So I just want to say thank you, Brian. So, and the
Great
Board
to
of
hear.
Selectmen for supporting the Board of Health.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We appreciate the work, and it has
Yep.
continued to increase, and
Yep.
it's good to see.
Yep. Well, thank you very much for this evening.
Thank you, sir.
We don't know what we'd do without him either.
Yeah.
Couldn't help myself, and you know it. All right, next up is the Senior Center. Dr. Betters, come on up.
You know how much I love this.
You do great. So same thing. We'll have you go through the highlights for the current fiscal year, challenges, and then looking forward to next year and significant budget changes.
Okay.
Floor is
The
yours.
highlights and challenges, as far as I'm concerned, and most of the people, I think we had very little challenges. We kind of went through the whole COVID and everything, and the only challenge that we might have had is that we're not offering lunches, and people are still asking for that. So that's the only challenge, but we're working on options to make that happen at least monthly. And highlights have been really strong turnout. We have had a lot of new seniors as well as continued participation of our older seniors. But exercise classes have been so highly successful that we're almost at a point where we're thinking we may have to reduce the classes and have them in additional classes, because we're getting 25 to 30 people,
Wow.
and they're all spread out and So it's pretty great. The other thing is that another highlight is we're really finding an emerging new senior. Compared to what we had before COVID, we had a lot of the seniors that were, 70s, 80s, and into their 90s. I don't know whether it was COVID that did it or something else, but we are having less and less of that. What we're having is the new senior that is just retiring, and they're looking for things to do, and they want to stay busy. And with that said, we're going to hope that we have a strong workforce of volunteers. We also have been approved to hire an activities coordinator, as you know, to manage that program of volunteers, and also additional opportunities. And there will be many, and if there isn't, I'll be pushing for many. And this will include hoping that we can get the volunteers to cook once a month, and maybe have theme lunches with probably some kind of program that goes with it. And also possibly adding a few evening programs to offer to the community. And these programs will be designed to innovate and motivate not only the seniors, but to include intergenerational opportunities. And we'd like to do that even with the school, and we've had that in the past anyway. So we're going to still reach out to them, because we would have the kids coming over and reading. We would have the kids coming over and doing different programs with us, and we hope to also go over there for programs that we are going to do that we think would be great for them too. So those are kind of the highlights, because I don't think we have a lot of challenges. We're in a pretty good situation, so that's good. Do you want me to do a
Well,
little
any
goals and
questions on-
initiatives?
One second. Any questions?
Any
on
questions for me on that?
23? Okay,
What are you smiling for?
Doing
proceed.
fantastic.
You'll be running the meeting before you know it.
Yeah. Well, usually I do run the show, but not on a camera. Okay. So once we do hire the activities coordinator, I'm going to go to the reason that we are. I'm going ahead of myself. So you're going to have to wait until I get my budget questioned, because I'm saying the reason why.
You go right ahead. We
Okay.
can come back to it.
So the one thing that we want to do is, obviously, if we're going to increase with a new person here, then we're going to increase the budget. And that's where my biggest budget increase was $5,000. Don't know if we'll use it, but there's no way I'm going to bring on somebody and never have the options of new events, new programs, and so forth. Plus, it's a way to pay the instructors. So if we have 2 or 3, 4 new programs, that money will come out of there. The other thing that we're doing is we do have a friends group here, and the friends group is, we have a sign-up of people over there that we have never seen before, and this is the new emerging senior. These are women that come here that have owned their own businesses and so forth, and here they are signing up for our friends group. And we will be having a meeting this Thursday, so we're going to talk about that. And I'm also on the Mass Council of Aging, not board, but we are in contact with them all the time, and they have friends groups that actually support senior centers. Like the Chicopee Friends Group, $2 million a year they bring in. So it's pretty amazing. So we're going to talk about what we can do. I'm not promising that even close, okay? But what I'm
hold
doing
you to that,
is that the possibilities of what we may be able to do with new people that are innovative and movers and shakers. They'll have to be, because I'm going to be doing that.
There's going to be a competition for those members that start bringing in $2 million.
Yes, I
Annually.
will. Well, our craft fair was great, so I'm really happy about that. So I think that's it for that. Any questions on any of that? I'm sure that you see the little, oh, well, that's on my next page. So the purchase services were, that was our biggest increase. The next increase was electricity, and I didn't necessarily increase it because I think it's going to be that. It's kind of estimated because of all the assumptions that we're getting from the electric company saying you better be ready, things may be higher. Because 3 years ago we were paying about $21,000. 2 years ago we were paying $14,942. But we're also, with COVID, not here as much. And we also had a time where the whole system was down because we were installing
brand new.
No.
Heat pumps in.
This year, it's $20,530. That is the final statement when it came in in December. So the increase is right on if it goes to that. We
Just so
went
you
up.
know, I had told everyone that I kind of came up with, let's do 50% as a baseline. Just to,
Oh, you're the one? Because I was
it's my fault. I'm guilty.
Okay, because I wasn't sure who
Trying
did that
to-
one, but
Trying to navigate those rate announcements and everything.
I know.
Best estimate is.
I'm only
a good
kidding, you know
50%.
that.
I do.
anyway. So I was following your lead. Okay.
Perfect.
Cable internet, we just went a couple $100 so that we would not go over. And if you saw what we spent, what we expanded and what we did, the $200 is nothing. Propane increase, we should have had it higher, but we didn't. So to date, it's $2,077. And I don't know what it says in there. I went up $200 just to cover. And then dues and memberships of $100 increase. That's with having the new coordinator. If there's anything else that he or she needs to go to, I would like to cover that, and that's the $100, you know. But by that time, the Friends will be paying for all that, so.
We have that in writing.
I'm going to really work on that. But the Friends do pay for a lot. Like if there's exercise equipment, we've bought 2 pieces of equipment. If there's pieces of furniture that we want, we purchase that. If there's any families in need, we make sure that they are. I've gone to the school. I do a little bit of a blurb that says, any families in need, please let us know. The Friends will take care of it. So there's a lot that we do behind the scenes that we don't talk about because we don't really want people to know, or the people that we're doing it for, they don't really want anybody to know either. So we do a lot of good things here in Erving Senior Center.
Maybe some way to put some of that out without being specific about what and where, but just ideas of, what's going on as generically as possible.
I know.
Maybe.
You guys just want me to do more work. It's okay.
Sounds like a good task for the people doing it, the Friends.
I don't mind, you know that.
The propane is actually 900 because it's a 50% like the others, approximately. So,
Yeah, I
like
don't.
the electric.
Oh,
It's
okay.
900. It's
Oh.
good. It's what's in there.
Yeah,
You're good.
I had a couple of questions.
I was
Not-
going to ask
oh,
on
go
that.
ahead.
Is that the generator primarily?
What?
Propane?
Propane.
No, the
And
generator's
Generator,
the kitchen
right.
equipment, and then there's a secondary heat source for part of the equipment. My mind's drawing a blank right now in the basement. So the propane runs both systems.
Right.
But during COVID, we
the heat,
weren't
the
running
cooking, and the generator? Or not the generator? What did you just say?
generator.
It's the heating.
Oh, that is propane as well. Sorry.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so it's all
the
three.
3 units.
All three.
Okay,
Yes.
correct. Got it. Thank you. Go ahead, Scott.
Just a couple of questions. One, you talked about an increased usage, and clearly the numbers are growing. And that's, we had talked about that when you were asked for the additional staff as well for the activities coordinator. Are you seeing the word getting out outside of Irving that this is the center to come to? Are we seeing, or are they all Irving residents
They are all over.
all over the county?
Yes.
Yeah, that's-
all over the county. Yes, word is out
Yeah.
because no matter who comes here, they always say,
Yeah.
we can't believe what great things we're hearing about the senior center. And everyone that comes is coming back. So we have on our quilting, to give you an example, the quilting class on Friday, I have 2 women that come from towards Boston.
Wow.
Yeah, but the great thing about it is the donation box is a little bit heavier than it normally is, so that's nice.
Yeah. It's good
And
to
I don't
hear.
ask,
No.
but they feel that our hospitality.
Well, if they're going to travel an hour and a half to 2 hours to come, there's something going on that they're really enjoying.
Yeah, and we always are here,
Yeah.
being hospitable, like always having snacks and always having coffee and so forth. And again, that's from the Friends group. The snacks, a lot of times it's Triad brings that in, and we utilize that, but it makes it just welcoming, so.
And just one other, I would say it's an ask. You had talked about intergenerational, and you've done this for years with having a cohort of the school and combining. And I know we've talked about it in the past about trying to enhance more of the community aspect of the community, senior and community center. So with the new assistant coming on, the activities coordinator, if there's any way we can look at maybe bringing in some programming, you had mentioned evening programming, maybe there's something that's geared towards seniors, but geared towards seniors and their families, so that it gets a broader spectrum of engagement outside of just your seniors, because I think it'll really highlight what happens here outside of just, because you do other things like the craft fair, which just brings in tons of people. But I'm thinking programming that it's almost where children in school bring their parents to see what they're doing. The seniors that are utilizing this building could bring their families in as well, and maybe have like a family night or something different. Just throw that at your soon-to-be new activities coordinator and see what sort of grand ideas they can come up with.
Okay, well, she'll be kind of busy, or he'll be kind of busy as it is, because I'll tell you, I have a lot planned. A lot. The one thing, there's things that I haven't talked about at all that a lot of people don't know about, but we did get some grants, and those have not been used yet, but they will be. I just didn't want to start anything yet. We're hoping to have, like even a tag sale out there this year. There's going to be, we're having a meeting this Thursday, and there's going to be a lot of ideas about all kinds of things that we can do. I just don't want to do, the library does a lot with kids and so forth, so I kind of always left that with the library, okay? And we can do, this is for the seniors and their grandchildren and their family, but we have, I kind of almost want to leave it a little bit separate, not having everything together, because we're together anyway. So over here, I want to do things like maybe we can have a mother-daughter sew, you know what I mean, that type of thing. But we'll definitely explore all kinds of ideas. Except I don't want to be open like 7 days a week, okay?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, I know I brought it up several
Only
years
7
ago, early on, saying just let's not forget, the larger community. And I know the library does that, and that's a huge aspect of a library is community engagement and activities and programs.
I just don't want to cross the lines all the time,
Correct,
Like
but
if they're doing,
it is a senior and community center. I don't want to harp on that too much, but when we funded a multi-million-dollar building, it was under the idea that it would be a senior and community center. And I'm not saying it has to be a 50-50 share. It could be a 95-5. But doing stuff that is for the larger community, and I'm not asking you to break out your calendar and show me what activities are and what activities aren't. I'm just saying, just don't shut down the idea of being able to open more. You came and asked for an activities coordinator because there's a lot of things that you want to do. The use is increasing. We overwhelmingly said absolutely, and even changed the title to give you more broader use of that person outside of just activities. So just please, in the back of your mind, when this new hire comes in, keep those ideas in line that it is a community center as well as a senior center.
Right.
Your primary role is senior center director, but it's also a community center. So there needs to be some sort of balance, and maybe that's a 90-10 or a 95-5, but some balance in there.
Yep. Well, the one thing I have to say about that is the exercise room is open, and the community can use it. No one does, except for the seniors. So that's kind of open. The back room is oftentimes open. The one thing that we do is the reason that we needed an additional person is that all our mornings are filled. Our afternoons are not. And that's where we needed to go. And we are filled 5 days a week. And if it's not for example, the Farley Five that play music, they practice here every Friday. The pool players come in. They play every Friday. The crafters come in, the quilters come in. That's a community that anybody can come to. So there's a lot of programs that are out there that are open to the community. So people need to, and we say that all the time, open so, come and join us. So I just want you to know that it is here for a lot of people, and they just have to take advantage of it.
I don't know. Yeah, please.
I was
Yes.
going to say, as someone who is a younger community member, I did not know that. So, I did not know that the exercise room was open to anyone. And so maybe just doing a little something in the around town that says, hey, FYI, anyone is welcome to come use the exercise room or join the quilting class. Honestly, I look at it and it's put out as the senior center calendar.
Yep.
So I just make the assumption that,
Yep.
this is a senior center event.
Right.
So maybe just having that clarity that people know that they can just come and drop
Yep.
in no matter.
Yeah. I think,
whatever
though, we
their
do have
age.
to do a little bit of limit with the exercise room. I want it to be, I think we have to have a little age limit. I hate to put 18 and over, but I just have to be a little careful because I don't want to open it so that the 16-year-old that wants to hang out in the afternoon and go on the elliptical, I don't think that's a great idea. But anybody that is, I don't care if they're 21, I don't know what the limit would be, but we have an open, so on Friday, join us. But yeah, definitely. I mean, like I say, I put it out there as a senior center. I don't know how to make it not a senior center, but I do always say we're open, and it's an open and things of that. So
I think that is kind of similar to what I was going to say is I don't know that message is clear to the community that some of the programming is available to, I was going to say all ages, but I understand and don't disagree with your thoughts about there needs to be some boundaries. But,
some boundaries.
but just making that clear, this event, the
Yep.
exercise room is open to anyone aged 18 and whatever, 5 days a week. Putting that messaging in there, because when you say open it just sounds like it's open for new members of the senior community to me. I wouldn't know, and
Okay.
you're not going to see me there. I'm sorry. My sewing skills are not the greatest. You can ask the expert.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
But I
I'd be
think
happy
that's
to do
part
that.
of it. And then I think, just, and I'm not to speak for Scott, but for me, I think we've all talked off and on about this. How do we make this a little more around the community? And I'm not thinking 7 days a week, and as a weekend event once in a while, something useful, great timing, evenings sometimes, things like that. Partnering with rec on maybe some events that are jointly either held or planned or hosted.
Yeah.
And
And I think
the mid community, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying, because there's a lot of event programming for children and there's a lot of event programming for seniors, and I don't necessarily feel like there's a lot that we currently have out there for in between.
Well, maybe we could come up with some kind of, you know, something like to know, you know, like they call people tween, and they have, you know, different in between. Like if there was something that, like I just don't, I hate putting an age limit on it. Like I don't want to say 18 or 21 to 90, come and join us here. Because actually, with the library being open next door, there's a lot of people that of all ages go to the library. And so, you know, they can come here too, but
It'll,
it
yeah, I
could
just
be
think
again the
messaging-
title. You know,
messaging,
it could
yeah.
be again the title, because we've discussed this many times before. Calling it a senior center connotated with community center, still people overall they think senior center. So we have had many conversations, even with the Mass Council of Aging, and they talk about what could we do. Like one person, I think, is calling their center like a living center or whatever. They're coming up with different titles so that they do attract different people. And if we want to do that at some point,
I do.
I don't
That's
object
why
to
I
that.
brought it up. I want to attract other people. Is why,
right,
That's why
come
I brought
up with
it up.
a name, but
It's not about a name change, and
think
I don't
it's
want to
an-
belabor it because we could be here all night talking
know.
about the nuance of it. It's a budget hearing, so we're going to go through lots of budgets. But just the idea of even just rebranding some of the offerings that you currently have without even changing what you're offering, but highlighting the fact that they are open to all ages, or
the age is what I want to know what
Yeah.
you guys feel. So at
we
some
don't
point,
have to
just
hash
let
that
me
out
know.
tonight. That could
Yeah.
be that's a whole
That's what I
different.
mean. Just let me know at some point.
Well, I
But
think
I'm
that's
going to
for
hold you
to-
and your family to coming here. So
I think that's for you to recommend, though, at least to us. If you know, like, I understand what you mean about ages, but you're going to probably need to define it. There has to be, if
That's
there
what I
needs to
mean.
be a limit, then it has to be clear.
I agree.
It doesn't have to be 290. It can be end up.
yeah.
If
Well,
you're
we can.
101, you're welcome to come too. You know.
Yeah.
But
So I think that we can discuss that again, and for sure,
yeah,
I'm open to that.
budget questions beyond that.
Oh yeah,
Other
budget. Oh yeah,
questions.
that's what I'm here for.
All part of it.
I'm done. I'm all set.
You're good.
No, I have
Anything
no
else?
questions on that.
Finance. You good?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Veteran Services.
So as of right now, I'm not anticipating any changes in our assessment from the Veteran Center. It's going to go down looks like it may go down a couple $100. So I'm just recommending level funding that for now. Similar with veterans benefits, we've been level funding that $30,000 amount in case our veteran services change throughout the year, that we'll have sufficient funding for that. So I'm proposing to level fund that. And the only other suggestion I'm making is we started the Veterans Recognition Program this year. That seemed to be very popular. And so my recommendation would be, if we would like to continue to sustain investments in that program, starting a new line item, I'm recommending $2,000, but somewhere around there to just keep up with the equipment, and as veterans submit their requests, so that we can process those and have them produce. But that's it for veterans.
We probably don't know yet, but at some point, I think the board and or whoever need to discuss standard policy on like how many until we'll go out to print, or how long of a period of time to print new. And then what's a replacement schedule, and what's that look like for damage or wear or age or all of those things. I mean, we're not there yet, but that may change what that funding is long term, right? Depending on
Yep.
getting those things. It's new, so we don't have it yet, but
Right.
okay.
Have you had additional requests since the first installment?
I think I have 7 more ready to go.
Oh, okay.
So
We have funding to send those out.
I borrowed from the line item that we used for the seasonal decorations this year, so we didn't get to do as much of that because we wanted to really launch this program.
Right.
So I was waiting just a little bit longer to see if a request was coming, and if a request wasn't coming for that line item, and we could hold off a request until July 1, maybe using that little amount that's left to do the next 7. But they're all ready to go. So
Questions?
None.
Okay. Okay. Um, Next up is Public Library.
Did I recuse myself from the Finance Committee because I'm a library trustee? And it's the trustees.
I'm sorry?
It's the trustees' budget. We don't have a posted meeting, so I won't talk to the other trustee. But I have a comment, and then the other trustee may, and then we'll let the library director present the budget.
Okay, and you were recusing yourself as a Finance Committee member, correct?
Correct.
So there's not a finance quorum, so if you have questions, that's fine, but they can't weigh in since there's no
Okay.
quorum tonight without you.
Okay. I just wanted to give a bit of history of how our budget was developed. And when we were doing the development of the budget, we had our liaison, Selectman Bembury, online, so everybody's involved, and it was done with the town administrator. And like Leo, I thank Brian for all his help putting this stuff together with us. When you take away the things we can't change, or we believe we can't change, our budget increased about 2.7%. We're not sure about the electricity. I don't know if it'll go up $15,000 or not. But whatever the electricity is, like everybody else, we can't change it. It is what it is. And the state aid, we have to have 20% of our budget, and that's roughly this $9,000, in order to continue getting the state aid that we get. And we get more than just a check from the state. We get access for all the residents of Erving, and I'll let our director give the statistics, to everything throughout the state. And the rest of the state has access to us. It's a cooperative effort across the state, so we really can't change that much. If our budget goes up or down a little bit, that $9,000 could go up and down a little bit, but it's got to be 20% of our budget, is my understanding. The other thing is the wages. We had an employee come to us, and as employers, the employee came very respectfully, said, you know, you hired me with a job description of X, and I'm doing X, but I'm also doing A, B, C, D, and Z. Would you take a look at the job description and see if it's accurate? And what should we do about that if it's not? So again, with the help of the town administrator, we said, well, you know, we're not experts at personnel policy or labor law or whatever. It turns out, if you hire somebody to sweep the floor, you're not supposed to have them replace the roof. I mean, you need to have a job description that's reasonably accurate of what they're doing. So, turns out the job description was substantially different than what the person was hired to do. We don't have the cast of Ben-Hur working over there. We got a few people, so we said as trustees, let's look at the few employees we do have and see if the descriptions are accurate, and they were not. So they've all been updated, again, with the help of Brian, and then we said, well, we're not experts at what should somebody be paid either. So with the help of the administrator, we went around what are people paid. There's a Mass Library Association guidelines and what are other towns paying, and this reflects what people should be being paid. I think we've all been employees somewhere, and if they hire us to sweep the floor and we're getting paid to sweep the floor, but we're running 3 milling machines and a drill press, is it reasonable to say, hey, you know, what's going on? And it was all done with respect, and there was nobody complaining. It was just bringing it to our attention, and as doing our due diligence, we looked at it the best we could, and this is what we came up with. So the things we could change is like $5,400. That's where the 2.7% of our budget comes from. So that was my thoughts on how we got where we are with this. The other trustee can say whatever she wants to say, and then turn it over to the library director and ask whatever you want. I'll sit in the back, so it doesn't even have an appearance of a conflict with the finance committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Why don't we shuffle over one seat?
So, do you want to restart from the top? Or do you want to go through the highlights and challenges and the goals and initiatives? I don't know who's going to take that.
Whatever,
Dan jumped into budget, and so that's okay. I don't have any problem with it, but
sure. We can go back and do the highlights and challenges if that's
yeah, if you
kind
would,
of, I
that'd be
mean,
great.
that seems
Yeah.
like what everybody else is gonna kind of be doing.
Please.
So, I think it's, you have the narrative in front of you, right?
Yes, we
Okay.
do. Yep,
you want
yep, from the budget.
So,
I just talked to
just
it
to
high
kind
level.
of
Yeah.
paraphrase, I think the great things that have happened in the library is we've been piloting different hours that have really helped with younger children, younger families visiting the library, as well as seniors. They like the earlier hours, and so that's so far been a great success. Staying within the 30 hours, but just shifting the hours slightly. And we've really expanded our programming as well. I know the Senior Community Center is expanding, and we are as well. And I think that's been a really great thing for our new library. We seem to really be kind of in there now, and we're up and running, and people are coming, and our patron numbers are up, and our materials are going in and out. You know, they're getting back to pre-pandemic numbers, which has really been great. It really kind of feels like we're settled in the building. Another great thing is we are also settled with our staff. We have a library director on board now, so that's, you know, we have some continuity there. We have our other staff members, so we seem pretty settled as far as the staff goes. Some challenges certainly are continuing with our punch list, our building punch list, and getting people to actually show up and to do the work they're supposed to do. And I know that Abby gives us an update every time we meet. She's been on them, lots of conversations, lots of emails, lots of phone calls. So it's, you know, an ongoing challenge, but I think we're slowly ticking away at some of those punch list items. And other ones, you know, we're going to need to be deciding some other kind of decisions have to be made, some bigger decisions on some of those punch list items. We're still continuing to work on the LEED certification as well, so that'll be great when we can finally wrap that up. The other, of course, I mean, the cost of everything is going up, so our programming costs, like everything else, they go up as well. So that's a challenge in the sense that we have to afford it, but it's great in the sense that we have a demand for a lot of programming. So I'd say it's a challenge and a highlight. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention that I didn't particularly mention?
I think there are growing pains with the building systems budgets along with the electricity, because there were projections when the building was created. And this is really our first chance to review that and to make sure that the budgets match up with what's actually happening in the building.
Yeah, that's true. There were some things that we didn't budget for that we should have, sprinkler once a year testing and things like that, that, you know, that we now understand and have gotten better, kind of a better handle on the building.
Yep.
That leads into it, if you're done with current year, a question that I had, which is specific to solar, but in general to the overall budget projections for the building and where we actually are operating from a cost and efficiency and all those things. I know, I think at one point in the last year or so, solar came up as is it performing to design plan? Are we seeing that offset like we expected to in operating costs, which is electricity in this case, right, directly?
Yeah.
So that was just a question. I don't know. I know that had been something discussed at one time. I don't know how that's going. I don't know if there's been, with the difficult to get a hold of design engineering teams, have we done some of that retroactive assessment, or are we trying to?
Yes, we requested it again over a month and then maybe about 6 weeks ago now. We requested it again, and the response that we got was that it was going back to the civil engineers to get the updated analysis. So I'll have to follow up
The
again.
assessment is difficult to obtain, but I can say that we see a credit in the warmer months. So in the winter, the electricity is higher due to usage, but also due to the lack of sun. In the summer, the bills are much lower because we do have solar panels, and we do see that on the bill.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't give you metrics from an engineer,
No.
but I can say
And-
that we do see it.
And
have
are
an
we
effect.
meeting, I'm sorry, I
It's
took
okay.
over you.
are we meeting what we were projected to meet?
Right.
I don't know that we have a 100% answer on that
We
yet.
have the analysis on the building usage, and that was following the model. So that was, the analysis that they did was supposed to be two parts. First was to analyze the building function based on the model and what we observed in year one. And we did receive that analysis back, and it was similar to what had been projected. So we were waiting on the second part, which was specifically the photovoltaic array, and we did not get that analysis back. And that's what we've been following up on.
And so year one being year one it was open, not like
No, the year that we had asked. So that was about 10 months ago that we asked for that one. So we did receive that back.
I'm just asking because
Right.
what the last 6 to 12 months use was versus
Yeah.
after it was officially opened, right? I mean,
Right.
it's night and day probably. So
Yeah.
Right.
okay,
So we'll see that again.
okay.
Part of the lead process is using an energy monitoring software where data from Eversource is put into a dashboard along with the water data. And so we may be able to track and easily pull data from that system once the logging is completed.
Okay. And I know we have
kind of
this. I'm sorry.
It's kind of a backdoor way of doing it if we can't get, in a timely manner, the other information.
Yeah, I'm just thinking even the photovoltaic performance estimates out of the gate, do they even line up on an annual basis? I don't know, but I don't necessarily feel like it's, I don't know. On the surface, to me, it doesn't seem like it's performing as well as it sounded like it would in in some of the late design and early, building meetings that we had, right?
It's
So,
a great question and something that we need to stay on top of to make sure of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my second one was just around lead and timing. I know we ask every time, so I know it's slow, but do we have anybody committing to any timeline yet on when that may be complete?
I think we're close, aren't we?
Well, the most recent report had us completing 38 out of the 40 required
Yeah.
points,
We're
with
close.
at least 2 more pending. Unfortunately, the person who is responsible for our lead report at Johnson and Roberts recently left the company, so we've been assigned to a new person, and we are contacting them regularly to follow up on that. But the fact that we got that report recently is promising in terms of our overall project.
It's close to the finish line. Okay, well, that's
Yeah.
good to hear we're close and we know how
Yep.
close we
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
Getting there.
Yeah, one of those points is just verifying that there is a lead certified person working the case. So I verified with the firm that point would be awarded, so we are really right at the end of that. And,
Excellent.
I haven't been working with it for very long, and we've seen a lot of progress in that time, so I'm hopeful.
Okay, we are too. All right, that's my last question for FY23 for the moment. Anyone else?
Just a budget question. You talked about grade changes.
Just a bunch.
Just a budget. No, budget question.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. It's already late. I'm already tired. When you talked about grade changes, are these new positions? Are they updated responsibilities to current positions? Are there step increases? I'm just a little more clarity on how you got there. That's all.
Yeah, so the job descriptions were very, very old and outdated. So once we kind of tackled the idea of updating the job descriptions, it became clear that those labels of those jobs just, they didn't fit the job anymore. So we created new labels, if you will.
New titles, new positions.
Thank you, new
Yeah.
titles for the positions that better fit what we needed and what they were doing
Okay.
in the library, yeah. And then we worked to figure out where the appropriate place on the grid, on the salary schedule was for those positions.
Okay. Thank you.
FY24 goals and initiatives. If there's anything in there that wasn't covered already, I don't want to belabor it.
Get the 2 extra lead points, tick off more punch, punch list items.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah,
there's probably not anything else in there, is there, that we haven't already touched on.
To increase programming,
yep.
now that the building's been open, we are getting an idea of what the community needs. Now that we know what the community needs, we know that we need to increase our budget for instructors and materials. We do have a lot of programs that are run by volunteers. We're very lucky to be able to do that. and so we're trying to make the most out of the budget that we can. So our programming budget was currently $3,000. We're asking for an additional $1,500, which we feel is very reasonable. Most of our programs are actually funded by grants. So we had over $3,500 in grant funding that went to programming last year. So, really we're asking for a small increase that will continue to pad with the grant funding as well.
Questions?
Do we have some statistics of what the library's been doing?
Sure. Like, in terms of, like, how many people or how many programming?
What do we have?
All right. So, some comparison statistics are very interesting this year because FY21 was impacted by COVID. So, library attendance in FY21 was 350 people. Library attendance in FY22, 4,724. In FY21, the library was open for 5 weeks and otherwise curbside service. In FY22, we are open for all 52 weeks. Physical item circulation in 21 was about 10,000 items. In 2022, we circulated over 18,000 items. In just July 22 to December 22, there are almost 10,000 items circulated. Of the 2022 items, about 10,000 were Erving patrons, and about 8,000 of those items were actually delivered to patrons outside of Erving via delivery or in-person visit made possible by our CW Mars membership.
Nice. And that's
Throw some numbers at you.
calendar year comparison versus FY, right? Just to
I
So it's
indicated
just-
when it was FY,
Yeah.
otherwise
Yeah,
it was
okay.
calendar year.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Big changes.
Additional numbers available upon request,
And probably in the annual reports.
of course.
Other questions, concerns? I thought about this, it maybe popped in my head when Director Betters was talking about the senior community center, we're having that conversation, but same here with programming and stuff. I wonder collaboratively, maybe rec, maybe, library, all of these groups that engage a lot with the community.
Yeah.
We'll try to bring that in. How do we do maybe a community outreach survey, get some feedback on what would the community like to see that isn't scheduled, programmed already?
Yeah.
Throughout the different departments that provide programming.
We have
Just
at
think
least
that-
3 different commissions from the town that are meeting at the library regularly using those rooms. Historical Commission, Conservation Commission, and now Rec Commission as well.
Yep.
So it would be very convenient to ask them about some feedback and how they'd like to do further programming in the space.
Yeah.
Yep. And we did do a survey not that long ago to get community
To the community, okay.
input, yeah. And I think one of the interesting things of when we look at our programming to kind of show that or illustrate that is we are doing things like the gardens, and we're doing things like movie nights and family game nights. We just did the family game night. So to pull in those age groups, and then to just to speak for a minute about your idea of like that kind of that middle, that 20 to maybe 45-year-old age. We've been doing a lot of the Sunday crafts, and that's where you see kind of that age group coming to do the crafts. Older people as well, but a lot of that kind of age group are showing up for those, myself included, for those craft nights. So I can tell you firsthand that that's where that age group is coming in, and that's really, we definitely cater to our children, and we certainly want to include our seniors, but that age bracket is also a really kind of important demographic that we want to make sure that we're meeting. And I really appreciate you bringing up, the community center too, being that we are right next to each other. It'd be nice if we could.
Yeah, I think
do a
the
little bit
partnership
more.
is, it's obvious that it can happen here.
Yeah.
Just on location alone.
Yep. In fact, Abby was just noticing the projectors. Oh, there's a projector here. Maybe we can,
Right.
Partner and do some movies over here or something else for families over here. So,
The surround sound around it too.
Yeah.
yeah.
The library buys for what would I call that? performance rights, public performance rights for films every
Yeah.
year. And so there's a question of whether or not that could be extended, if it's an Erving license or a senior center license, or how we can look at that, but it's very affordable. And movie showings are very popular. We bought a popcorn machine. It makes a nice atmosphere. The craft afternoons that we've been hosting have actually started to have a wait list, and we can only fit about 12 people in the makerspace. And so if the senior center wanted to collaborate on craft events, this room could be really helpful to be able to expand the number of attendees per event.
Probably
I'll talk to Paula.
availability on the weekends too, right now. Cool.
You said movie night, and it got me thinking. I think Amherst has done this before on the Common,
Oh, yeah.
an outdoor,
Oh, they've been doing, if they're still doing it,
an
they've been doing
outdoor.
it
I don't know
for
if you do outdoor
30
ones,
something
or
years.
if you've thought about doing one.
We haven't, but now that our patio
That's
is
what I was
out there
thinking,
and we
you know,
have
you've got
some,
the space
you know,
to-
come warmer weather, that's
Yeah.
definitely something that we can be thinking about.
Yeah,
That back patio. Yeah.
Move the whole field.
I was going to say even the back field. If you get too many people
Yep.
that want to come,
Yeah.
Yeah.
get a nice little inflatable projection screen.
I was gonna say, not to put Eric on the spot, but didn't Rec buy a outdoor movie screen at one time, or they were doing outdoor movies at one time? That might be before you were on the board, sorry.
Don't you remember 15 years ago?
Yeah, I know we have
Okay.
indoor screen, yes. But we actually had, not to talk out of turn, we had a discussion about the licensing of the movies and collaborating more with the library and the senior center at our last meeting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
There's an additional
Check.
fee
Love all
for outdoor performances,
Great.
but it's not exorbitant, because anyone can go by and see it.
Right.
Yeah. But I think it's $400 a year for the performance license. It's really not a big deal.
Right.
Yeah. And very much worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
See, this is what happens when you do more programming and you want more money for it. Then we're up here going, ooh, can we do even more?
Yeah, totally.
Food truck festival.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Right
We'll
before the
pair it
movie
with
night.
books that go along with the type of food.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And cultural council events at the Riverfront Park, right? Lots of different things happening. Okay, I think there wasn't any more questions, so I won't keep you both any longer. Thank you.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thanks.
Recreation and Parks. Come on up. And I think we're going to welcome Dan back to the Finance Committee if you don't mind hanging on a moment. And just for my clarity, because I know things change, Dan is the chair of the Board of Library Trustees currently? Okay. And Eric, you are still chair of Recreation? Okay. Thank you. Welcome. So you've seen it, same format?
Yeah,
Go through
all
current
right.
year and talk a little bit about next year and then budget.
Yeah,
Do it.
let's give you a brief overview here. Some of our challenges, obviously a small board. We're finally coming from 2 people to 4 of us, yes. So we added Jackie and we added Katie, so that's been great this year to actually have one of our first full meetings just the other day with the group.
Nice.
So,
Can I just interrupt you just for a second, Eric? Excuse me, if you're going to have a conversation, can you please take it out in the hall because it's interrupting the meeting?
They didn't hear you.
Thank you. Sorry, Eric. Thanks.
yeah, no problem. So that was a challenge, obviously. Even with those challenges of a short staff, we were able to bring back Summer Park, which we didn't have the year prior due to, restraints for COVID and staffing and all that. We did this year have the trunk or treat and the Rag Shag Parade, which was probably one of our largest in the last couple of years. We estimated about 200 children and adults, so that was really good. Marching from here to the fire station. So that would be a highlight. And other challenges, basically sports have been down. One, I think enrollment in the school is probably down about 40 children probably over the last couple of years. So we've definitely been seeing reduced sports, but we've been picking up this year with a strong basketball team for 2 different grades, the 3rd and 4th grade and the 5th and 6th grade. So really happy to see that moving forward. And I think just based on the years of children with the instructional kids finally getting up to the higher group, I think we'll be seeing, soccer definitely. Baseball is a real tough one just due to so many different offerings around, in Turner's and Greenfield and all that. So I don't think we'll have the multiple teams like we had in the past when my kids were a little bit younger, but I think we'll definitely, always have a T-ball, we'll always have an instructional, but, we won't be bringing home too many titles in those groups. Goals and initiatives, mainly we're going to try some new ways to reach out to the Erving residents and residents a little bit farther out with a postcard 3 or 4 times a year, try to get into the little additional avenue besides, everyone knows Facebook and all those other platforms, but we're trying to see if we could get ahead of that, where those things are kind of maybe a week out, where we could, where the Around Town gives you a month overview, we could get some type of, baseball's coming up, or soccer's coming up, or the Halloween's coming up, some a little bit different avenue to get people interested in, some of the programs that we offer. And that brings in some budget changes, so that'll be an increase in postage and printing, which we added to for this year. What else? Budget changes. Of course, all the other costs that everyone else has discussed earlier in the day, we've added into our budget. Software. That's about it, I would say. Does anyone have any questions about any of this? I know it was kind of brief, but the statements are really in the narrative. Do you have anything to add, Jackie?
One of we've been meeting, we've set our meeting schedule for the year. Basically, January through December, we have set meeting dates. Also, we've formed a couple of subcommittees, 2 Recreation Commission members and our Assistant Rec, Bretta, to work in smaller groups so that we can get more work done and not burn everybody out. We've formed a subcommittee for parks. We want to relook at the parks. The survey was done 4 or 5 years ago. COVID hit. People have changed their recreational habits and patterns, and so we're going to re-look at the survey and re-look at what we might want to do with the future of the parks. We are working with Mariah on, we partnered, she's going to apply for a grant over at the window for the walking or the biking trail, and we did give our vote of confidence for that and support of that. Our other subcommittee is events. We would like to do more community events. Katie, that is one of her goals, is to do more community events, and so Katie and I are on that subcommittee along with Bretta. Eric and Renee are doing the sports. We are down a member, so if you know anybody that wants to be in the Recreation Commission, there is an opening. And then we have a summer park subcommittee, so that's part of it, is the subcommittees are to work more efficiently and get some stuff done. We do have some big goals, like I said, more community involvement. There is a lack of what you call the in-betweens. Now, even though I'm over the age of 45, I'm still in the in-betweens as well, and I would like to personally see more community activity, intergenerational, but a little bit of something for everything. We want to expand on our summer park, the Riverfront Park concert series. We would like to work on checking off the list of finishing up the items that we have that are outstanding at Park Street Park, at Riverfront Park. And then we want to look into depth at Zelensky and what we might want to do for Veterans Field, that sort of thing. So that's where we're going with that. And the budget does reflect some of that. And we're going to take it and see, now that we have 4 members on the committee again, and hopefully a 5th after the May election, and move forward. Any questions?
Questions? I just had a couple. Park maintenance, it looked like we spent almost none of that last fiscal year. And so I don't know if there's a driver there. I think it's like 25,000 budgeted and we didn't spend 1,000. Or is it that grounds maintenance and park maintenance is overlapped, which is why we're over on
I think
grounds
it's an
and under on
overlapping, yeah,
park?
because
Yeah.
that one is that.
So is there, I guess then that drives the question, is there a need to increase either one of those, or do you just need to shift where the money's assigned? Because it's 50 between the two of them, and you spent 37 between the two of them in the prior year. So I'm just wondering if that 5,000 is needed, or is it just a matter of shifting some of the budget from park into grounds, or vice?
If you could give us an opportunity this year with a full committee to review that. I came in really late in the process, after the budget had pretty much already been set, so I can't really answer that question for you. Other than we probably need to look more in depth on, maybe it is, overlapping in that, or perhaps we didn't use the maintenance like we should have because the parks weren't being used. Veterans Field, we removed the playground equipment, so it's really not being used for, well, we used the fall festival, we did the fall festival there and that sort of thing, but it's not being used like it was because we removed the playground equipment. And I don't have an answer to that question, but we will look into it for you.
You can run a detailed expense
Yeah.
reports on each of those lines and go over them with you.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah, no, I seem to recall in prior years that we were far behind when I took over as chair to increase those lines because we were overspending drastically every year. So, and I think with the maintenance on, I agree, it's probably put in the wrong line item, but with the, with Park Street or Triangle Park or whatever we
It's
want to
Park
call
Street,
it,
yeah.
Park Street Park, I think we're going to have an increased expenses there. Definitely expenses on, like I think it was in our budget challenges for, outsourcing mowing and maintenance at Riverfront. I think that's an increase at Park Street and all the new challenges at Zelensky that we were facing, as far as, some of the capital things that we want to do there.
this maybe my ask would just be not as concerned about in prior year if it was in the wrong buckets, but
Yeah.
just take another look, and maybe further back we'll tell more of the story.
Sure.
Maybe there was an exception last year, but do we need to raise the combined to 55 between the two, or adjust where it's allocated to line up better, or level fund? That's kind of where I'm
Yeah.
Well,
thinking.
if Brian
And
can
in the
run a
future-
detailed report for us for the last couple of years, then maybe we can figure out what happened and then
Yeah.
adjust it accordingly.
Just let us know, give us some feedback for a future meeting, once you guys meet and discuss and review it. I think that was the only question I had. The others, I think you explained why, where there was, like Summer Park, the prior year was almost none, but now we're
Yeah.
back to it finally.
Yeah,
So,
back,
those
yeah.
things, kind of things for me.
Record's working on signage for the parks. What's the status on that?
So that's on our to get it done list. So we have a general idea about Park Street. We'd like to finish it up. I'm hoping before the end of this fiscal year to get Park Street completely done. And we need to relook at Riverfront Park. I understand there was some signage, but I don't think a design was ever decided on or where to actually place it. So I think that's a part of a larger discussion with the select board. Because you don't really want to put it at Riverfront because it's kind of hidden behind Arch Street. So it's almost like you want to put it, and there was a design to actually put it at the parking lot next to the Historical Commission, but I know that there are some things happening with that area, so.
And I think if I recall, there was a little bit of from us, maybe us, but maybe all three of us to try to hold off because we were trying to get more of a
Yeah.
unified branded
Yeah, no,
signage directive from
I wasn't going to bring
To
that
be-
up, but yes.
Well, that's on us. We'll take that. So I know we've started that process again, not to slow it down, but just to I think that's
We did
could be
review
a
our
component.
policies on all of that, and we
Yeah.
did rewrite them. I think we were just waiting for the correct font / color / whatever else we were using.
Well, I know Church Street Park had some signage that was supposed to happen, and we were told a year or two ago that it was forthcoming and it never arrived. So some of the signage was on dogs and animal use, and
Oh, you mean like guidance signing? You don't
Yeah.
mean like
Yeah.
naming?
Yeah.
You don't mean like advertising naming? Oh, okay.
there's I kind of lump them all together.
Okay.
Usage signing.
But
Yeah,
usage
like
signage
guidelines and
as
rules.
well.
Yeah,
So.
I believe that the signs, do we have the signs here, or do we need to, I don't know, we'll have to figure it out.
I'll have to fall back up
Yes,
with that.
yeah. That part's easy, yeah,
Yeah,
don't
that's a little bit
pick up
easier,
after
yeah.
your dog,
Be
parks are
surprised.
open and down, and closed, open, that stuff is the easy part, yeah, we can get those up.
Zelensky Field sign definitely needs replacing.
Yes.
That is in desperate need to replace them.
Yeah, my comment was more on the branded and
Yes.
the town, wayfinding type signs that we
Right.
were waiting on trying to,
And, well,
hopefully trying to get a cohesive design and brand for the town first.
once the select board decides on the branding, then we can move forward with the larger signs, such as Riverfront Park, Park Street, Zelensky, that sort of thing. We want to do it so it's in line with what the vision of the town is.
Any other questions for Rec?
I don't have a budget question per se, I do have a website comment. You can't find who our rec commissioners are on the recreation website, and at least I couldn't when I was looking this weekend. You can find like email recreation at Erving and then the web address, but just for people who don't know who's on the board of rec, if we could maybe have a listing and how to if we wanted to contact someone directly, I think would be nice.
I actually have brought that up at an earlier recreation meeting, and Brenda was going to work with the people who host our website, which is, it's MyRec. And they're going to have to do a design to put it in there. So I'll check with her to see where we are at it. But yes,
Okay.
I agree. It would be nice to know who the commissioners are and how to contact them.
On the Irving page, or maybe I'll just add it too. There's other things, not just the MyRec that comes up in that frame too. On the left, there's contact and there's links to forms and other things, so you can put it on that left.
Yeah,
Left
yeah,
pane?
Right, yeah, the pane over here, yes, if we
Yeah,
can't get it
so-
in the main page, we could put it over there.
At least it's, something as a start.
I can work with you on that.
Yep. And I can do it.
They're uniquely qualified now. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Historical Commission.
I received an email right before this meeting that most members weren't unavailable and one was going to try to make it from another meeting, but it doesn't look like he's arrived yet.
Okay, well, we'll circle back at the end if we arrive by then. If not, we can reschedule.
Okay.
Memorial Day and some ceremonial flags. I believe that's yours for tonight.
So I am proposing an increase only because costs have gone up on all materials, specifically flags have been costly to procure and longer lead times to obtain. So these are just my recommendations if you'd like us to continue. So an increase for the ceremonial flags, that's everything down Route 2, Route 63, and all the town buildings, in the cemetery and veterans memorials. Memorial Day services, I believe this year we will finally be able to have our parade again and our ceremony like you had traditionally had. All of the restrictions are gone, so we're going to start the planning process for that. And we've been trying to increase the arrangements that get laid at the memorials. And you've been making annual investments in some seasonal and celebratory equipment. So some is to continue to expand, and then the occasional piece that burns out or needs to be replaced, just ongoing maintenance. So we're proposing a slight increase there.
Have we already started talking with Franklin Tech? I know we've had them in the past.
You're talking about for the marching band?
Mhm.
I'm reaching out to them this week.
Okay. Cool. I don't have any budget concerns. Questions, concerns?
Nope.
Penguin and Snowflake are out again.
Oh,
Penguin and Snowflake. are
actually,
out
yeah. So they,
One caught on fire last week.
again. Oh, jeez.
maybe I didn't want to go. to that
Everybody's
topic.
safe.
I think they're turning on and off, and I don't know if they're censored, because I think they are. And if they're late censored, then I think they're getting triggered as others come on, they go back off. They seem to be on between like 4 and 6, and then they're out after that, and the others are on.
Got it.
So,
I
anyway,
will look into that with the electricians.
Not up.
That's what's going on.
yeah, as they're here.
As anybody who was downtown or lives downtown or conducts business downtown saw that the repair process for the lights was extensive. It ran several weeks. There was a lot of troubleshooting. There's been a lot of electricians over the decades put their hands in there, and so having AMP, who was your contractor, go back through and keep working things through, we've identified, isolated the few additional things that need to be fixed. So the list that you had is much shorter now, but it was not a small task. So I will review those issues with them as well.
Thank you. So, okay, I was just going to ask you, Pete, if you minded if we did the town clerk first, because you're here for a few different things. Mr. Newton, come on up. We'll do town clerk first.
This is going to be back in section 2 from a few weeks ago.
Try not to throw stuff on the floor.
That would have been, I think, in the December 5th packet that folks got.
I was just going to go looking for it.
Nobody's opened the book yet. Not sure where I find it anyway. General administration. Gotta be. Oop.
That was the one. Do you have it right there, or do you want me to forward you the packet?
Do
I have it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it. It's going to be on page 2-14, is that?
That sounds right. 2-14.
All right, if you want to go ahead, same format, go through current year, next year, and hit the budget.
Yeah,
detail.
okay. So generally what I listed under the highlights and challenges was, I think the biggest challenge this year was the legislature changing a lot of nuances to the election laws. And it was sufficiently enough changes that it prompted the Secretary of State's office to decide that they need to put the procedures around those changes, which is what they're tasked to do, and then they had to tell that to all the town clerks. So every Thursday, we had a Zoom meeting with the Secretary of State's office. It began in July and ended the end of November. So there were several changes, and you just needed to keep up. And because of that was, like one of the big overriding things for me this summer. Sadly, the codification project kind of got put again on the back burner a little bit. And that is definitely one of my goals for next year. I don't think we're going to make it this year, to be able to present it in this fiscal year to the town. So maybe we'll be able to the end of June.
But, you know, I still owe stuff to general code. I'm waiting on a couple of decisions from you guys. And then I will submit that to them, and I do not know how quickly they'll turn that around to come back with kind of a final draft that we'll want to go through again, probably to look at, and everybody say yay or nay. So that process length timeline is up in the air for me a little bit. But it's feeling like we're getting closer to completion at this point anyway. So that's the good news, I guess. The other items that have I've been made aware of, let's say, I know that there are going to be some changes at the state level in terms of vitals, births, marriages, and deaths. That software system that they are using is going to be rewritten. And so they are looking for input from town clerks. And I've already sent them some information. And I don't know how long that process will be, but if it's like the first implementation of it, it's going to be a couple of years before we actually see it on our computer. And they involve the town clerks a lot, as well as funeral homes and hospitals, you know, dealing with the births and the deaths and all of that. So it's a huge, huge undertaking, as you might think. And so I'll be taking part in that as time goes on. And also, the Secretary of State's office has announced that there's going to be a new upgrade to the voter registration system. So again, that's going to be a bit of time because, again, they deal with the town clerks and the board of registrars and all the cities and towns to try to get input as to how they can make it better, while also looking at how they can more readily implement the things that they kind of had to Band-Aid on over the years that the legislature changed the program. So that's going to be another lovely learning curve in the next year or two. So just a couple of, for what it's worth, categories. I would also say that, interestingly, I still get a lot of requests for records, particularly election records. And thankfully, I can no longer respond to records for the 2020 presidential election, because by law, I was allowed to finally dump that stuff. And so I don't have that information anymore, other than, you know, what we counted and what the actual tallies were and things like that. But during the election, during the primary and during the state elections, I had several campaigns continue to ask me every day, how many people have voted? You know, what was the breakdown, Democrat, Republican, or, you know, who was it that came in to vote and things like that. So those are just ongoing things that happen during every election, but it has definitely intensified since 2020, as you might imagine. I think another thing that's going to be coming up is we are looking next year, not only to complete the codification project, but hopefully we're going to have some new software. I know that an RFP went out, we've looked it over, and I'm not exactly sure what the status of it is. I turned in my thoughts on it. But we're looking for software that will do, you know, dog licensing and cemetery management and boards and commissions and some other things I know that Brian was interested in. And we're trying to get that all in one handy-dandy package that has a similar look and feel. Right, maybe just one database where we update a person's address here, it's magically updated everywhere, you know, unlike the system that we have now that are all separate databases. And, you know, once you have two databases, which address is right, you know, it's a gamble. So anyway, we're looking to do that. And so I raised that because what I did in the budget is I level funded software maintenance for this year, with the realization that, depending on what we get, if we get it in the next fiscal year, that number may change. Don't know. So I just level funded it for this go-around. And indeed, most of the rest of my budget was level funded, with the exception of wages that were adjusted according to the schedule. And also, I would note that the elections and wages account expenses went down because I'm only running 2 elections this go-around in '24. There'll be a presidential primary and the regular town election in FY '24. So I was able to reduce that balance. So I think that's pretty much everything I have to yak about. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer.
I think you said you didn't change software, but we did program in an increase in software support cost.
I think I put it, the placeholder at least,
So-
for your budget, for our budget,
I was
and
gonna
for
say-
the Board of Health budget.
So you overlaid what the anticipation
What we
from the
anticipated
effort so
changing.
far. So it's not final, but we did increase
Slight,
it
yeah.
slightly.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions, concerns?
No.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
Would the group like to entertain a short recess, or you want to keep going?
Keep going. I'm either way.
Keep it moving.
Okay, you keep going. Superintendent Sanders, you are up
Yay.
for a while.
Where do we begin?
Oh,
We'll
let's take a
start-
break.
We'll just in time.
If I have a coughing fit, I'm sorry.
We'll start with water. Water
We'll start with
Enterprises
water?
up first, please.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back to our current packets. We jumped back. Oh no, it's not current either.
No,
No, but
it's in there.
But I did put that one in there.
Okay.
11C.
Yeah, 11C.
Yep, 11C. Yeah, okay, got it. Got it.
So you still want to start with water?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Well,
Wastewater, water.
it doesn't matter.
Brown or clear, you tell me.
Page 5-7.
Oh, I'm so wrong.
Drinking water?
There's some humor that.
Yeah.
No.
Sure, that one's easy.
Yes, let's do that one first.
Okay, so FY23 highlights and challenges. Basically, staying in compliance with DEP and EPA regulations. We started up our PFAS testing program for all three systems, and they've all passed so far. Now we're just going to do the regulatory random testing when we have to do them, the quarterly, yearly. And then we did our flushing of the hydrants program. We started painting the hydrants this year. Did some hydrant repairs, replacing meters as needed, and the monthly reporting. Goals for FY24, finish the hydrant painting project till it's completed. Continue maintenance of the tank, pump house, water distribution system, flushing the hydrants, which is done twice a year. And I plan on putting up new signage at the water tank and the pump house. For budget changes, probably the biggest changes are I increased the water testing line item, and also the well and pump station was increased. That's where I take my electricity out. That's why that was increased. So overall, from 23, I was at 98,417, and for 24 requested 105,240. Total increase of 68,23.
I just had a couple questions. Distribution licenses, refresh my memory. I know we're funding it, but we're not expending it.
What's that again?
Distribution licenses, we funded it, but we didn't expend it last fiscal year.
Or the year before.
There's only one on here. We're
It's every,
not in the current year
Okay.
yet, and not in the prior year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get a better trend in the future, but still.
those are every 2 years.
Okay, so it hasn't hit.
Hasn't hit yet. no.
Okay.
So we continue our TCHs for the 2 years. They audit everybody who has the license. It's the same as like with the wastewater.
Okay. The tax collector water rates assistant is, at least from FY22, not even expended at half, but we've increased it by a few dollars, by $40.
The what?
The tax color.
You're asking, okay, so there's a holdover, or there's a placeholder for estimated number of hours for that position to work on the water department.
Okay.
And so that can change from year to year depending on what's happening in terms of the number of commitments issued.
Okay.
But to your point, historically, it hasn't hit the rate that we've been holding for hours. So that's something you could choose to reduce if you wanted to.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking at the fact that it's gone up the last budget period a few $100s and now a little bit more, but we aren't even getting halfway there, so we don't know that it needs to. It's not a significant amount of money, but it was just noticeable.
Yep.
And software support fees look like they're well under our budget as well, and I don't recall what that's for. Is that for TI or what?
It's okay?
Yeah. Okay.
That's Tokay and Vadar.
Right.
Oh, it's both.
Yeah,
Okay, it's an
Vadar
assessment
also,
for
yes.
Vadar as well.
Mhm.
Got it.
Pete, what are the insurance policies?
That would be property and liability insurance.
Okay, okay.
That's not in our normal insurance sections
That's-
because it's the water department
Constantly.
and it's an enterprise fund, right?
Enterprise
So
fund,
it has
yeah.
to be treated separate, okay.
Called out separately.
I was answering it because I was questioning it
As-
and remembering it as
yeah.
I said it.
Okay.
So what I
Inside, I
do,
answered it too.
it's going to show it hasn't probably been expended yet this year. Is that true, even though I paid the bill?
No, it shows expended.
shows
But it
expended.
shows we've never budgeted it. That's the
Correct,
challenge.
that's
But
what I
now
was
we are.
questioning. Yeah,
Yes. So typically the July bill comes, I have to pay it in full, but we don't get our premium breakdown until later on. That comes from the underwriters later in like, September. And then I have to go back with Debbie and do journal adjustments to put it back out to the rate funds. And that's true for wastewater as well. So we're trying to be consistent in each of the enterprise funds.
Questions on water? Okay, wastewater.
Okay. FY '23 highlights and challenges, maintaining compliance with DEP and EPA. We started our nitrogen limits protocol and testing for both plants, 1 and 3. We started up our new permit. It's a MAG permit, 580021. It replaces the old permit for POTW number 3. Then we painted the snorkel vents at PLTW number 3, and we're also in the process of finalizing a new permit for POTW number 1. And then we started a preliminary PFAS testing on sludge for future limits. Then we also spent time repairing the blower at the plant and rebuilding of the UV system. And we did repairs and rebuilds of the pumps at Arch Street Pump Station and normal maintenance of the pump stations. And we're following new permit testing for POTW number 1 and continuing pre-treatment programs for POTW number 2. The goals, initiatives for FY '24 will be to stay in compliance, keeping the licenses current, our licenses, while doing continuing TCHs. With the uprising costs of parts and supply demand, you'll see it in the budget. We'd like to build up our inventory of the UV system. It took a big hit when we had when they were testing the generator, we had a power spike. It fried the whole system pretty much. And then I also want to put up new signage for the pump stations and the plants. And then also the agreement with the town of Montague will also be up for renewal, so we'll be working on that.
That's up for renewal at the end of fiscal 24? It expires at the end of fiscal 24?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
So it's something we need to start working on once we start the fiscal year, right?
Yep.
Okay.
That's the way we've done it in the past, so.
You
Under the budget,
said, before you move on, questions on highlights, challenges, coming year, before we get into budget detail?
Do you anticipate any financial changes with the agreement with Montague, or do you don't know yet?
Too soon to really say what will happen at the negotiating table.
yeah,
I said it's probably too early to say what will happen at the negotiating table. I would assume that that's going to be a primary conversation between both select boards.
Okay,
right.
thank you.
I would love to see costs go down before we have that conversation, but unlikely in the world that we are in, so that's all I can add.
Okay. Thank you.
New signage in terms of like safety and directional signage? or
That
like,
and also, some of the pump station has what they are, with the address and number, so I'd like to just make them all uniform, put up new signs. With the OSHA stuff that we've been doing also, confined space signs have been put up on the stations already. If they need to be redone, we'll redo them because they're out in the weather.
okay. Good.
Okay. So, under the wastewater budget, our biggest jumps, electricity went up considerably. We kind of did the estimate. So that went up to 26. The maintenance line item went up. Part of the reason for that is we got to rebuild up our inventory for the UV system. All those parts are very expensive. And keep building them up. We do have a new line item, testing services. I don't know what that's going to be set at. I don't know what Deb or you decide. Because we want to kind of, we started breaking that out so we can keep track of all, with all the due testing for the PFAS, the sludge, the nitrogen. And the other jump I had was in sludge disposal because those rates are going up between fuel shipping costs and disposal at Lowell. And besides regular people's salary and wages, we had the insurance increase and then the retirement changed for another 5,000. So from last year, FY23 budget of 97,277, it's gone up to 1,062,111. It's an increase of 87,834.
Questions?
Pete, are we testing for COVID?
No, we're too small, believe it or not.
Okay.
Just to have a comment, I don't know how many people watch this on YouTube, the whole town does. And people are frustrated when they say, gee, our taxes are going up, what do you spend that money on? Vast majority of things that come to us in a budget, we don't have any choice. The state,
Correct.
federal, EPA, DEP, all those folks, they require us to do all kinds of stuff. You don't have a choice. You can't say, we're not gonna do it. And it costs money. And it not only costs money, it's going up a whole lot more than 8% on all this stuff. So just to comment, so anybody happens to be watching, realizes we're conscious of it, and the things we can control, we certainly try to. A lot of things are just out of our control. It just
Correct.
is what it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just actually offer one more thing. The increase to the maintenance line, while that seems substantial, and it is, not only is the replacement of some critical components that Pete had discussed with you earlier, but you also have been relying on a past practice, previous select board and FinComs, going to the voters and asking for special articles to be funded, and those balances holding for years. And so we've had those line items for years to rely upon, and that would not show in the annual operating budget, but it was still happening.
Right.
And so those are depleted now, those are gone, and this is a part of a transition to bringing those costs into the operating budget so that they're a true annual reflection. So in that 30,000, though I can't give you the exact number at this moment, if you're interested, I could look at it for you. There were other costs attributed to those special articles each year that
Right.
didn't make it into the annual operating budget because it was a different fund.
Questions?
I just had a question on the unforeseen overtime line. It looks like we're nearly doubling it in all of our past fiscal years. I was wondering if you could talk to a little what is driving that?
Last year was, between all the projects, we wanted to keep a staff member on site. They worked longer hours. They wouldn't get off the road when they were supposed to. We had multiple projects between like the Arch Street 4 sewer main. We had the Route 2 pump station, the pipeline, when that broke, that repair. We had Flag Hill, which was an emergency job. We had to do that. So they were all unforeseen. And, you know, between having a guy on Flag Hill while that was going on, and then the Arch Street Force Main when that was going on also, it hammered our unforeseen overtime budget.
But you're pretty much already expended.
Excuse me?
I said you're pretty much already expended in the current year in January. Well, in December. November. Sorry, that's from November.
Right.
Yeah, end of November.
Alarms, so the other thing was alarms and callbacks come out of unforeseen overtime.
That'll hopefully be getting taken care of.
Hopefully we'll cut that down drastically.
Well, we also have a weekend staffing scheduled overtime too, don't we?
Excuse me?
I said, but we also schedule overtime, planned overtime for the weekend, right?
The required hours that we gotta come in and do certain things, yes. That usually is a 4-hour callback.
Both days. So 8 hours
Yeah.
a week.
Yep,
So it's not unforeseen, but it is in that line, right? It's
correct.
scheduled overtime.
But it's, right, it's always been taken out of that line.
Well, I hope we don't go over in FY24, but we're definitely going over again in 23.
Oh,
If that,
Go ahead.
if they have, I'm just trying to make sure I understand this. If they have testing that has to be done on the weekends, why is that not part of a shift, and why is it overtime, rather it be someone's shift that they come in and work?
it's just never been that way. Because usually what they come in and do on the weekends, it's not, you know, really a total of 4 hours. We gotta do our, you know, the standard testing that we have to do, record some data, you know, pump hours and stuff like that. And then, you know, that's where that comes from. I'm looking into what they call a reduction in reporting. That may be able to cut that out. I was told that if your pump stations pump less than 100,000 a day, we could probably get a reduction in reporting. So I'm looking into that.
Okay.
So nobody, I mean, we do this all the time, working on the weekends. I'd love it not to have to work on a weekend at all, obviously.
And everything but one does less than 100, right? All of our stations do less than 100 except
They may
one.
all be. There's the two high ones, River Street and Arch Street.
Right. Okay. Other questions? I have a couple, but I'm gonna let you guys go.
I just have a couple, there's a couple other lines where I'm noticing that we're budgeting what seems pretty high, but it doesn't seem like we're spending anywhere close. Like the River Street pump station, it looks like we've been budgeting 12,000, but we're only expending between maybe 3 to 4. Licensing and training, you kind of touched on a little bit, but again, that's just one. I'm just looking, I know with capital and stuff, there's a lot this year, so I'm just kind of trying to find every penny.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if any of those, some of these other lines where it seems like we've been budgeting, like licensing and training, we're budgeting 4,000, but we're only spending maybe 1,000. So are those any areas where you feel we might be able to cut them back a little bit, or?
Most of the classes went online with COVID, so the classes in person, I guess it depends on the individual. The classes in person is what it would come out of that. There's a cost to it. When COVID went down, everybody started doing everything online. So we haven't been spending it because they've been making them available online.
Okay.
But I'm sure when COVID disappears, those are probably gonna, I don't know, they may disappear, they may be cut in half, or they may stay the same.
Okay.
And the licenses are every 2 years.
Yeah, okay.
I had a few of those highlighted too. Fuel and gas. I know we discussed some of these before, you and I, but we had that filled more than normal in 22, which is
Yeah.
why we haven't, it was overexpended, but we don't expect to expend,
Correct.
at least not more than what was budgeted in the current year, and that's why we didn't ask for more, right?
Right.
On that one?
Yep.
Okay. And then lab, I know chemicals, there's a low capacity, but
So,
lab was overspent last year?
right, because last year, that's what the testing all came out of. The cost for testing came out of labs. So we started this new line, I got with Deb because me, Deb, and Brian talked about it. I wanted to break it out so I'll actually, know what we're spending on testing. And we're testing for more analytes now, and the cost for the testing is still going up. So,
I don't see a budget for that.
That's where he was noted, and we have to figure that piece out. It's still a bit of an unknown. We were tracking it this year.
So we should put something in there before we finalize the budget,
yeah.
so I get something, right?
I'm wondering if we,
Right.
based on the conversation you all are having, I'm wondering if we can borrow from a few other line items, reduce those balances. If you're feeling like traditionally they're running high, and just sort of move that into the testing line item instead, so the overall budget total doesn't increase.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody knows, but the lab won't be 15, or will it be without having testing in there? Maybe that's not 15, I
I
don't
can go
know.
back and look historically for that.
Right.
You mentioned River Street Pump Station, which,
The only thing with River Street Pump Station, we just want to be careful how much we take out of that probably, because out of River Street's, because Montague's a customer and all their flow goes to River Street, everything that's out of River Street, the electric, the Comcast at this point, and, that all comes out of that River Street line item. So,
Oh, okay, so thank you for explaining that. So River Street Pump Station, that includes things like its electricity and its Comcast.
Yes.
So, okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
Any upgrades, repairs, maintenance to the pumps.
so, we talked about this before, I don't know, but, I don't remember, but is there a reason? Is there a driver between calling that out separately versus having it in electricity and maintenance and the places that
That may have been
all the
done-
others are?
Yeah, that may have been done years ago when Montague was a partner. Then years ago, they decided they want to become a customer.
I was going to
So-
say, if they're a ratepayer, we don't need it specifically for the agreement, so I don't know. It doesn't necessarily have value today to be broken out, right?
Right.
I don't know, I'd kind of be in favor of folding it into the standard operating cost so it's not confusing, because I look at electricity and assume that was all of it.
I was
No,
waiting-
everything but River Street.
Exactly, so.
I was waiting for you to say River Street had some big special thing that they needed $12,000 for.
No.
I didn't realize it was just its typical annual expenses.
Yep.
Well, and maintenance,
Yeah.
right?
And
And its own
It does all
maintenance is
of
in
it,
there
yeah.
too,
Yeah.
so I'd be in favor of trying to parse that into the other ones and zeroing it out this year if we can, for next year if we
So you
can.
want to fold electricity, still take that out of the one electricity line item?
Yeah, I would say for FY '24, unless anybody disagrees, can we take that 12,000 and parse it out in a few buckets, put some in maintenance, some in electrical, up roughly what we think it should be, and show those more accurately instead of having that separate? Unless anybody feels different.
No.
Okay. Yeah, look at
Okay.
doing that, and we can just submit an adjustment.
Okay.
Net no change, just to moving it around.
Sure.
Consulting, was there a driver between that being really high but not budgeted higher in the prior year? Yes?
They're doing like these renewals,
Okay.
which is what, it's supposed to be every 5 years.
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
It was 10 years we waited, something like that.
and then capital improvement versus maintenance versus a capital improvement request that's outside of the budget, the operating budget. What is the purpose of that line in the operating budget? Or is that just holdover too?
I think it was just a holdover. We always had it every year. I think that was the other one we were talking about, folding that. Was that part of it that was folded into maintenance when we were talking about it?
I'd have to look at those notes from a while ago. But that's kind of why I'm asking, like, is this another one that we should just fold in? It's a legacy thing, because to me, if it's going to be capital and it's going to be that much, and it's more of a one-time or an infrequent, then it doesn't belong in the operating budget. So it just feels misleading. So if it's a maintenance expense, then it should go into maintenance, if that's what we end up spending it on.
But I wonder if some of that's not maintenance of current items, but it's smaller purchases that don't meet the $5,000 threshold. Yeah,
Wouldn't we normally call that maintenance anyway?
typically.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking.
Right.
Like,
I'm going to purchase, yeah.
yeah.
If I recall correctly, you see the line above it that's currently zeroed out, reserve fund. I feel like there was an split between those two line items, and I think at some point you all discussed in the budget cycle that you weren't funding that reserve fund anymore, and everything got moved into the capital.
Right.
So that $10,000 been there for a few years. I don't recall all the conversation you had that year, but if you wanted that zeroed out or moved into a different line item, we can make those lines disappear. If the differentiation doesn't serve a purpose, then
Yeah,
why
I don't-
differentiate?
If I don't know what it, I mean, personally, if I don't know what it's for, then it doesn't serve a purpose, because we don't know what it's for.
Right.
Can you give us an idea, Pete, what have you spent that $7,900 on from that line? Is it all kinds of stuff? Was it just one thing?
No, I believe that was the one thing. Was that the HVAC?
Yep.
Yeah, the HVAC at the plant. Because it broke down, we had to get it fixed. It was good that we had that there at the time, because the lab has to stay at 20 degrees Celsius, so.
Okay. So if you didn't have the specific capital improvement line, would that have come out of a maintenance line? That repair?
That would be the only other
Yeah,
place
that'd
I'd
be
take it,
the
Okay.
only option at that
unless
point.
coming back to you all for
Yeah,
a
okay,
reserve fund transfer or something of that nature.
okay.
Right.
Keeping on the same line of looking at some of the line items, Pete, the last one under ordinary expenses, sewer maintenance expenses, budgeted at $20,646, but 22 expended 6,200, and we haven't expended anything as of end of November.
So that line item, I don't know why it was separate, but I've always used it for, like if we have to jet out Flag Hill, for instance, when we're having problems up there.
So I think you're in the conversation that the board and the FinCom are having. I'm wondering, clearly the descriptions are not clear enough to
Okay.
explain their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So if the regular maintenance line is generally meant for the plants and the pump stations, that line item, my understanding, was meant for the collection system. So maybe we need to be clear that that's what that's intention was.
Right, well, and not only that, is that an annual occurrence, or is it more, utilized more like a reserve, where you may need it, or is it a contingency, I should say, where you may need it and then may not, you may or may not?
Right.
And that's what I'm asking, I don't know. So is it utilized every year? Because it doesn't look like it was in FY '22, not to the extent of 20,000, it was utilized at 6,200.
Right.
So, and I don't have historical previous to 22 in front of me. So I don't know how over budget or under budget it was spent year over year. And I'm wondering if there's, room to adjust that, not only rename it so that it's more clear on what it's used for, but adjust the total to be a little bit more accurate on what's expended year over year. One of the goals is to always make sure that we're not overtaxing. So if we can get the budget back down to more, a little more accurate usage in areas that we think we can pinpoint a dollar. So without having the historical knowledge of what that line item looks like, I don't know
Right.
if it makes sense to pull some money out of that along with renaming it or leaving it, status quo for funding.
It's been mainly used, like I said, for when we have to have a jet truck come in or have a company come in and camera sewer line. It was just basically maintenance for the lines. It wasn't for the pump stations or the plant.
Yes, I think your thought on overhaul, at least the names of these line items, because they're very ambiguous about what they're used for. So it calls a lot of questions where we're sitting here saying, what about this, what about this, what about this? Because they're not as clearly defined.
And I was gonna say, it's not right or wrong, but I noticed it with water too, especially, but I know that's enterprise funds was part of the drivers to having a lot more itemization than some of our other budgets.
Right.
So you just see a lot more of this granularity that I don't know if it adds value. And here we see a lot of duplicates which may have came from prior needs and projects that have since changed. Sorry, you were going to add something?
I was just going to offer that I could sit with Pete at the next one-on-one and work on a proposed revision to this where we could collapse line items into others, proposed name changes that hopefully give more clarity as to their intended purpose, and maybe reallocate and overall try to reduce the budget requests in places that we can. I mean, obviously we can't touch your debt service. I mean, there's some things that are fixed, but
Right.
if we can go back through things that look like they have extra capacity, and when we have that one-on-one, I can go through the historical expenditures and some of those line items.
I don't know if there was a direction there, but the sewer maintenance versus, hearing you say that now, because that was one that I'd highlighted, I wonder if maintenance should be defined better, you know, it's
Yeah, that's
buildings
what I
and
was thinking.
stations and then sewer, you know, lines and, you know, I don't know,
Yeah.
outer infrastructure, whatever you call it, but,
It
you
may
know,
have
kind
all
of
been
groupings.
broken down like that because it's an enterprise fund.
Right.
Yeah.
But just clearly defining what the lines
Yep.
are so that any person opens up the budget and says, I know exactly what that maintenance is referring to as opposed to this maintenance down here. Two different items, two different categories, just so it's cleaner.
And your input on what's valuable to know, is it valuable to know the maintenance on pump stations versus the plants versus the lines, or, you know, does it make sense to just combine them because it doesn't add value, right? So there's kind of the pieces that we don't necessarily know either, so we look at it and wonder,
Yeah.
is that value in what we're seeing, or is it just noise, right? So
Okay.
legal, was that NEPTES? I don't know if anyone asked when I was away, but is that NEPTES as well, the legal consult? Okay.
One other thing I just want to go back to, you said unforeseen overtime, and I think, Deb, you had mentioned the weekend shifts come out of that same line item, and it's again with the title, unforeseen makes it sound like it's something that we have no idea. And I think, Jake, you had mentioned hopefully we won't go over budget. It has to go over budget. 8 hours a week times 52 weeks at just an average time and a half rate from any one of them is close to 17,000.
Oh,
So
you're
we're
saying
already
we're
over.
just- our unforeseen is scheduled.
Our
over
unforeseen
budget?
is scheduled. So if we're already over, any of the other unforeseen stuff that comes in will only put us that much more over budget on that line item, if that's what we're using it for. So we may have to look at, A, how we're defining those lines, but also how we're utilizing overtime. If, you know, because that's standard, that's almost 17,000 right there, guaranteed. Never mind the unforeseen stuff that comes up. And that's a ballpark. That's, you know, averaging out salaries and,
Right.
you know,
Right.
4 hours a day, 2 days a week, 52 weeks, because you have to do the testing every day. So,
Well, and the team has gotten larger, right? We add another staff member. Can
yeah.
we schedule that out, right? Or not schedule out the work if we can't get a waiver. If we can get a waiver and get out of the work, let's just get out of the work.
That would be
That would be ideal. But as a second option, can we find, can we schedule
Yeah.
it as regular work instead of overtime?
So,
Some opportunities.
yeah. So when you're looking at the budget, just to know that you can expect that if nothing changes, there's a likelihood that that line item will be roughly over budget, doubled year after year. We budget around 15 and we spend 31.
Well, we spent way more than 31 because some of that overtime that he talked about, we actually were back billed to those projects because we were over budget if
Oh, okay.
we didn't last year in totality, right?
Right, none of
We
that.
back-billed some of that overtime for Arch Street and stuff to the Arch Street projects. They're not even in the unforeseen because we build them to the projects they belong to, which I think is what we should do, but
Well-
just that idea that it was higher than that.
The overtime for those projects didn't come out of the project.
Some of it did, I believe. We can check.
I took it out of,
Okay. I think from our capital discussions, you estimated like $10,000 in overtime just for false alarm calls annually. That's
Yes.
part of that too. So I mean, you're getting up to 27
right,
without actual calls, without project overtime, without any of that. If it's 17,
Right.
let's just say on scheduled, plus 10 on alarms that we're trying to mitigate soon, hopefully.
yep,
Now you're at 27. I mean, 31 is like
right, so
a
for those,
cheap, a cheap year if that's the facts, because that means you didn't get any real calls, right? So
right, so for, just for instance.
problematic.
I was on this whole last week, and I had 4 of them that were comm loss that were, they're at River Street, which is high flow, so you gotta go there, and if we change what we wanna
nothing
do,
doing.
that won't happen.
I'm assuming the net result of what you were saying, though, is there's lots of things we're trying to do, but unless you get the waiver before we finalize the budget,
Right,
even if we expect to mitigate those alarms, 15 is not enough, no matter what. So I think that's where you were going, right? So we should
Yes.
adjust it some if those other things don't happen before we close the budget.
And we have time
Otherwise,
to
it's
look
just
at
gonna
that.
run over
Yeah,
again.
we have time to look at it. I
Sure,
just,
sure.
just wanted to make a point of reference.
I think it's a good point. I didn't realize we were scheduled over 15 already on top of that.
Well, and I guess just, I'm surprised to hear that there's scheduled overtime. I watch the meetings sometimes a lot at home, and I know during some of the policy discussion, it seemed like there were some statements made that the board did not want to see scheduled overtime. And so just looking at a budget and seeing and knowing that it's being scheduled, and I understand this is historical, so I'm not trying to gang up or anything like that. I totally get it's historical, but to me, it's definitely not unforeseen, and I just, it doesn't, I struggle with the fact that a department has regulations they have to follow for weekend reporting, and I know it stinks to have to be the person that comes in on the weekends, but to me, that isn't necessarily what I would look at as overtime, and of course, I'm someone who worked in the private sector, I understand public's very different, but to me, that's a responsibility of the job, and I would think shifts would be scheduled as such. And so I struggle a little bit with that. And again, I know it's a very historical problem and it's not going to get solved, so I'm in no way throwing blame or anything like that. I personally, as a finance committee member and as a resident, I would kind of like to see if there's a better solution that could be found for that.
try to come up with something.
Okay. I look forward to hearing what we can do. Other budget questions?
So water, we're
Okay, so
okay, but wastewater, we're gonna go back to the drawing board and propose a revision?
I think what I heard is we'd like to see kind of an overhaul and, professional input on what breakouts make sense and what don't. What should we combine, what shouldn't we? And bring that back as an updated one that shows that. Try to ballpark testing, try to figure out if lab should adjust or where did testing go before, should it come out of somewhere. Consolidating definitely on a few of these, I think, is what we all agreed should happen. And then revisiting the overtime, the things that you're working on, the things that we're planning to do, as those things as you line up and bring this back, which ones do and don't need adjustment, which ones will and won't adjust that number, in practicality, and so what is the real number we should budget so that we're not over again?
I
if
mean,
needed.
the sad part is I don't think it's going to get any cheaper.
I think just the principle of unforeseen overtime, it's kind of a redundant statement. It's actually like a double. It is overtime. It's not supposed to be foreseen. our public works and our public safety, we expect to need to budget some because those areas have emergencies and they have to be addressed. And so we always expect it's one of most other budgets, we don't have overtime at all. But we definitely don't, at least I don't. I think we all kind of belabored it, but a little bit, but we don't expect it to be part of the plan to have overtime. So, but either way, we don't want to keep seeing it in the red every year because we're not budgeting properly. First, let's budget properly for what we know, and then let's figure out how do we improve that. How do we reduce things? How do we do, creatively get rid of that as much as we can? And I know your capital projects are some of that, some of those. Is that clear enough for now? Well, bring it back. We're still meeting about budget for a few more months, so
Yeah.
bring it back once you get a draft. We'll take another look at it if we have some more feedback, or we think it's let's try it for a year and go from there. See how it plays out.
Okay.
I understand. We increase maintenance because we've had a lot of failures and there's reasons. That makes sense. I get that. For me, I think that was pretty much that. Right, for water and wastewater?
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
have anything else for this.
So, the next topic, I'm going to, Finance Master, you sit here through this one, partake if you like on the distribution system because it feeds into our special town meeting discussion. Discussion regarding the water department project for distribution system lead assessment and potential SRF forgivable loan opportunity. That's a mouthful.
Yes, it is. I'm glad you took it on.
So how about the 2-minute version of what that's all about? Or 1 minute, whatever makes sense.
Basically, a few years back, EPA went to do a revision to the lead and copper rule. And they made their revision in 2021. In 2022, they actually came up with a program. This is one of those things, like Dan had mentioned, it's unregrettable. It's something that we have to do. There's no way around it. So we got a proposal, and part of this is we have to get an application in and get it approved by the end of March to DEP to get the 100% or have a chance of getting 100% loan forgiveness. The project is $121,500 if I remember right. So that's a big chunk of money. I think we should do this. It's a good opportunity to get the 100% loan forgiveness, which I think would be great.
What is the project doing?
Excuse me?
What is it? What is the task? What's getting done?
Okay, so part of the lead and copper rule revisions, we have to do, it's a service line assessment. So basically out of it, we get an inventory as to what houses have lead drinking water service lines off the main. Also part of that is galvanized service lines. And part of this is they'll take an area of houses built before a certain date, and then we'll go around and test them. They'll start with us going to the house, if the residents let us in, do a scratch test of the metal service line pipe. They document the color of it, and then they even take it back a step further. If it appears to be lead or whatever, they'll do what's called a vacuum bore, like outside right above the service line, get a sample there. And also part of it is to help the town with coming up with funding or whatever else we're going to need to replace these lines. So I was told we didn't have any, so hopefully we don't, before my time. And,
That's a lot of money for we don't have. We don't think we have, I should say. I shouldn't say we don't. We don't know, but.
Right, we don't know.
And this includes customer, meaning the private citizen's responsibility line?
Well, that's the kicker. So I was told that they could probably help with the residents as to where to get help to swap it out. Certain towns, I'm assuming if the town owns the water line right up to the house, then that would be for the town to replace them, but that's not the case in Irving.
Right.
So
They own to the main, correct?
correct.
The
Well, to the
homeowner
curb
owns
stop.
To curb stop?
To the
Okay,
curb
to the
stop.
curb stop. But it's, I'm sorry, one second. It's, if I'm clear, the responsibility to inventory and then develop a plan to replace is inclusive of the customer's line to the house as well. Is that, am I reading that right? Because it says utility and customer side service lines.
Right.
So we have to inventory it even though, according to our regs, it's not our responsibility as a town to manage or replace.
Right.
Okay, I'm done. Go
And
ahead.
that's high level just because it's connected to your lines. It's still part of the distribution of the
Because
water.
it's connected,
Yeah,
yeah, right.
yeah, well, fair.
Pete, when you say we don't have any, would you just clarify, are you talking about the town-owned lines or residential lines? Or
I
both?
was, word of mouth, I was told that there isn't any. But they also state in here, you have to accept the unknown. So you have to go and test.
So there's none in Irving or none none that is the town's lines?
None that I've been told, but that can't be right.
Okay.
That can't be.
I mean, the age of
The age of the house,
everything,
come on.
it just doesn't make sense that they wouldn't be there.
Right. There has to be.
Yeah.
But interior, it's not. It's just service line.
Correct.
But you think, but likely service line to main line, there was some somewhere. Probably. Just odds are, is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
the odds are.
Even though you've been told there aren't any.
Right.
Okay.
Your system was built around the beginning of the 70s.
Right.
So you probably have a relatively newer system in comparison
Compared
to
to
many other
most, ours is
communities.
very new.
But the laws went in 74, right?
Right.
For lead specifically?
Yeah.
Ish.
So
I'm sure there was some
Lead
inventory getting used
solder,
up, but.
you know, there's lead
Right,
and solder.
right.
Sure, sure. Okay.
Some people use lead lines, they actually use galvanized lines.
So Pete, when we test for different things on a regular basis, wouldn't that show up if there was?
Yeah, I have random houses that we test when we do the lead and copper testing, and they've all been below the limit. So, those probably aren't lead.
If they're below the limit, there?
They're below the limit, the parts
Oh, okay.
per million.
I'm no expert, but it seems like we should be able to test at the wellhead and test at the tank. And if it's the same, then we're not pushing lead from pipes around, but I'm probably wrong.
No, we have certain residence houses I have to go to.
Right.
When we do the lead and copper testing. You know, ask them, please, can you do us a favor, take the sample? We do the school because of the kids. You know, so there's just strategically certain places in the system where we have to do the lead and copper testing. And they've always been great, so.
The rules are lead and copper, but they're looking for galvanized and lead, not copper. 'Cause copper's the
Galvanized thrown in
exception.
there as an unknown because it's a bad, galvanized is bad.
It's bad.
Okay, yeah, no, I know, but it's lead and copper, but they're not. It's only lead they, yeah.
Right.
So this program, and I know a little bit more about it because you came and talked to Capital about it, is truly just establishing the inventory for you. Now, so-
Inventory and possible replacement.
Plan or?
I was gonna say, if I'm a homeowner, for example, and my house came up and it tested that I had lead, is this something then through this program that they will work with me and help me replace? Is there funding available to me? Or is this basically just like hey, you've got a lead pipe, you're in trouble?
The way I understood it was it would help guide you where you could, what you could do, where you could go to replace it if you wanted it
Okay.
replaced.
That doesn't sound like it speaks to financial assistance.
Right,
It doesn't sound like it.
okay. And my other question would be, given the timeline of this, what happens if you just said, I'm sorry, we can't do it this fiscal year?
We'll get a letter.
Well, it doesn't have to be done until October 16, 2024, right?
Correct, but to have a shot at the 100% loan
No,
forgiveness.
I understand, but in terms of completion,
Right, but that's a little over a year, really. That's not year and a half. That's, that's quite a bit of work to get done in that amount of time.
And is it guaranteed loan forgiveness, or is it you kind of go into a pot and,
You have to complete.
You have to complete
qualify.
it.
You have to meet this March deadline, but then you have to qualify by meeting all the reporting deadlines for the project.
So we have
Okay.
to, we send in our application for approval, to get approved by March, the end of March of '23. And then we have to complete the whole LSL replacement plan by October of '24.
okay, and so because we're Irving and we're awesome, and we get all that done, does that then mean that we would get 100% forgiveness?
In theory, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
it is a check all the boxes according to this, then we will forgive. It's not
Yeah.
a, we will consider, it's proposed as a will.
Okay. I was
Right?
just gonna ask.
That's how it's been presented to us.
Yeah, it's a, do all of this and then we will forgive it.
Yep.
Okay.
And the
The-
SRF loan is what you've used for some of your other upgrades to the water and wastewater system, so we're familiar with that process.
And the proposal we have from the engineering firm shows a timeline. It starts with the March special town meeting to authorize the loan, and doesn't really complete until nearly October of '24, just to what you said.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
So,
a,
how, go ahead.
I just want to point out what you were just saying is the crux of this issue. Because it's a forgivable loan, we must, if you wanted to do this, we must get authorization from the voters to do that piece. Which
To be
has its own
authorized
complexities.
to take the loan.
Right.
This for just people on the public water system we're talking about?
Correct.
Okay, so this survey would result in determining if there's any lead pipes anywhere between the main and the house.
Yes.
And it doesn't require the people to replace it. If they want to drink lead, I guess they can, but it lets them know. It says, lets them know, you either do or you don't.
Correct.
So if they don't, it may increase the value of their home a little bit, or if they want to sell it, say, hey, we don't have any lead pipes, that's good. Or if it's lead pipes, then they're been made aware that they probably ought to do something about that.
That's correct. And the inventory will be made accessible to the public.
But it's not a requirement, they have to dig up the front lawn and replace their pipes and stuff.
I don't think it is.
Okay, thank you.
At least not yet.
Not
Well,
yet,
yeah.
right.
I hate to say that, but I don't, and I'm not clear on necessarily, this project is what you just said. It's full inventory from tank to lines to house, but it's also a plan on how to prioritize, how to fund, and how to remove them. A plan to do it.
Right.
I'm not clear whether that's a plan that's inclusive of customer side lines, or if it's only the town owned, or if it's all of it in totality. And we're going to solve that right here unless someone knows, but just, I don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And so who's funding? If that is true, does this plan include how we're funding all of that on the customers? Like, there's a lot of question marks for me about
Okay.
what does that piece of it mean. The inventory piece, I think, is clear for me at least, but the plan part, this replacement plan, including funding and priority, is that including only town lines? Is it customer lines? Is it?
We can get,
And it isn't replacement, it's all of the plan.
yeah, we can get clarity on that for you all as you consider this.
I'm going to assume, I hate to say this, probably shouldn't, but if they're requiring us to test them and they're requiring us to have a plan to replace them, they're probably going to require that we replace them once they get those reports back at some future date. Right? That'll be the next revision to the lead and copper.
Could be.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know.
they require the town to do it, but they require the homeowner to do it.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Right.
Right.
And
Well, it says right in there, a funding strategy for conducting LSLRs, which considers ways to accommodate customers that are unable to pay to replace the portion they own. So part of their process is to say, if you have, we have 270 connections. If there were, 270 of those, and they said, I cannot afford to do that, this plan has to look at ways that the town would accommodate customers that are unable to pay. That's very vague. There's no threshold for what says that you're unable to accommodate or unable to pay. So there's so much unknown on that. But
I would imagine it could look something, and I'm sure to your point it's vague because every community is going to come up with their own proposal, their own solution. But in the 90s, and Erving participated in this, there were some town-sponsored or town-organized funds to help with the replacement of septic systems and the upgrade of septic systems. And there was thresholds and criteria and a fund that the town managed, and I'm assuming that there's programs like that that will spur out of this for the upgrade of these lines and the support of homeowners that may meet certain thresholds for it. So again, it's still very premature, but I'm sure that things like that will evolve out of this type of an inventory.
So all 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts are going to manage to apply for this in the next 60 days, 90 days, and have it done in October of
And
24?
water districts and private water systems and.
Well, that's I guess part of it, and this was something that get talked about a little bit in Capitol last meeting. How is that?
possible.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's only so many engineering firms. There's only so many, consultants that do this work.
Right.
Especially who are already familiar with the systems because they're the engineering firm used by the town and city and entity that have them. Seems and it's not only, there's this in case, I guess it's a potentially funded mandate, but it's seems untenable timeline. I just don't, have you talked to any of your peers about how they're going to manage this? Don't get me wrong, doing something they're going to pay for in full, I'm not necessarily opposed to. Don't just that part I'm not.
It's the
how quick and how long. They made this change how long ago, and then they, I don't know, decided to mandate it just how long ago, and now all of a sudden it's it's January. I don't know when we got the notice, but it's
Got the
fucking in
proposal
less than
November
90
30th.
days, make it happen.
Right.
To start, it's a lot for a short amount of time. I can't imagine towns and cities that have millions of dollars cost to do this assessment because of the scale of their systems being able to pull that off.
Jake, I share your apprehension. I'm not sure we're totally on the same page, but in general, you put out this piece of cheese, we'll give you this $121,000 total repaid. That sounds great, but then when the trap comes, if it turns out that homeowner has to replace this, and they'll say, well, those who can't pay. They'll say, well, you got a $250,000 house, sell it and replace the pipes, you can pay, I'm kind of concerned about homeowners getting sucked into something that they don't want to get sucked into because we get this paid. It has a good side also, it's good for people to know if they're drinking through a lead pipe or not.
Yeah. And I'm concerned for our homeowners if that's how it is. Not only that, but then they're going to be like, well, whatever pools of funding may not be eligible for the town of Erving because of our EQV or, there's all of those things that we run into, unfortunately, regularly, regardless of the citizens. If the pools are allocated to towns, we may not get an allocation or not as large an allocation as our neighbors because of that. So, I don't know we're going to solve it all tonight, but I guess I just, that timeline is pretty short. We're obviously going to revisit this at the next meeting and need to make decisions on an STM probably in the next 2 meetings anyway. What would we like for information from Pete before we make this decision? Obviously, we understand the forgiveness and the timeline, but and some of this is going to be question marks we may not get answers on. I get that, like what does replacement plan mean and prioritizing funding and those things.
My questions are more of the unknowns that I don't believe he'll be able to even get the answers to. Nobody will have that information at this point, and it's all about the third step. After the plan has been created and disseminated and made public, now what? And how does that play out? And what funding is there for that? And I don't. Clearly, if they had those answers, that would have been part of their. It would have been a task 3 instead of just task 1 and 2.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I know both, for myself and Capital discussed it again the other night when we met. And Capital has not made a decision either way on whether to support or not support yet. But one of their big questions was, what are other communities doing? And is there any chance of kind of bonding together with, other communities and saying, hey, this is a great program, but we just need more time. Like, this is a really tight timeline. So I don't know if you know what any of your counterparts are doing, and if there's any chance of kind of pushing back a little bit and saying, we don't want to lose the refund isn't the right word, but the loan forgiveness.
Loan forgiveness, yeah.
But can we have a little bit of a longer timeline? And then I too am concerned about if we go through all this. I know we personally PFAS tested our well, and that was one of my concerns during that program was what happens if it tests positive? What are they going to come back and say? You have to do this. And I know just from watching the news, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with septic systems on the Cape, and owners are now being told, you just put in a brand new system, but guess what? We're going to change the rules. You're going to do it all over again. So I'm just a little concerned that could people who are found to have inappropriate lines then get socked and said, you have to do this, and you have a timeline, or, kind of to Scott's points, those higher level questions, if we could nail down any answers for those. I feel like somebody out there somewhere knows these answers.
I mean,
it's whether they want to give them to us or not.
The next steps question. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for doing the test in the vein of public safety, right? I mean, you want to know, you want to test, you want to make sure people are safe.
Right.
But I just have questions about the after the plan is made.
okay. I have questions on the funding as I'm looking at it quickly. And there's $20 million, so it's a rolling basis until funds run out, is what it says in this mass.gov article about. The announcement that funding was available in June of this last year. So if we're 6 months past that and the deadline is March, is there even any funding left out of that $20 million? Because that doesn't sound like a lot for 351 cities and towns.
Not at all.
However, it also refers to public water supplies for populations less than 10,000. There's 1.3 million to contract qualified providers, engineers to complete them. So does that mean they're going to pay and contract it because we're less than 10,000 people? So there's two different funding mechanisms, and I'm just...
When you say complete them, complete the plan or complete the...
projects, being the LSL and the LSR. I'm reading, it's 3 paragraphs. I'm just reading it really quickly, but this was the Clean Water Trust in June of 22 that released this, the 2 different programs for the inventory and replacement planning. So that's just, I have questions like, which one does this fall under? Does that mean the funding's really there? If this falls into the smaller one, do we even need to manage this or do anything other than have tie and bond contracted by the state, by DEP? I don't know. But those are questions I do have for right now. And are we really guaranteed? And do we have a debt service to carry until October 24th?
Right.
2024. That was the one I didn't want to forget.
Yeah.
Because it's 100% forgiven, but it's a loan, and if the money's already taken, there's a
interest.
debt service until it's paid back, right? So
Yeah.
it's not 100% free. I'll take it over paying it back to principal,
Correct.
don't get me wrong, but... Anything else before you'd want to make a decision whether to recommend it on STM? Because that clock is what we're ticking against.
Yeah.
Whether we'd put it on one and whether we'd want to, bring it to the voters.
See it again in 2 weeks?
3, 2, 1, I don't know. Our schedule for the next 2 months is a little all over the
We
place.
have the 23rd and then the 30th.
Okay, there we go. So 23rd, 30th. Okay. Is that clear? What we hope to want for now?
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question for Brian. What about, remember I talked to you about the tank mixer? Is that,
So the STM discussion's next.
okay.
This was just because of this timeline that was a call out.
Okay,
So
all right.
if we're good on that one, I know we've kept everybody a long time. We have like at least 2 more we have to get through tonight. So
Okay.
we'll let you go or join the audience. We are going to talk about all that in a minute, briefly. I don't think
Okay.
you don't have to stay, but we are going to touch on some of that.
All right, I'll do some homework.
Thank you, sir.
When, you want me, tomorrow I have an appointment, but you want me to meet with you?
I'll shoot you a message after this and I can figure out something.
Yep.
Have a good night.
Yep.
Discussion regarding scheduling a special town meeting. So that's one topic, potentially. And we have a whole list of others. And depending on the timeline, still looking for feedback from the moderator on availability. But if we wanted to do something by the end of February, that would lend to likely reviewing a draft in our 23rd meeting and potentially finalizing it on the 30th. Maybe the 13th. No, what's the holiday? I don't remember. I have to look at the calendar. Anyway, there may be one more day if we wanted to push it, if we have it right at the end of the month, but that's probably pushing it. So is there an appetite period? Well, there's a school budget adjustment we need to do because of replacement, so I don't really think it's a
Right.
if, it's more of a when. We have to fund it this year.
Right.
So we have to do one sometime.
Capital has also voted for 4 items to be put on a special town meeting.
In the current year to begin them before next year.
Correct. Yep, for FY '23.
So the not so short list at the moment, and I don't think this is complete, but it's most of it. Maybe it's complete, you tell me, but there may be more. Authorization of a prior year bill, amendment to the education budget for the placement, amendment to the FY23 Board of Health budget, because now that we've taken on that employee and are the employer and the lead town, we have to adjust the budget to be able to fund that in the current year, even if that money already exists. Amending the FY23 capital plan, the capital planning committee recommended considering Poplar Mountain Conservation Area surveying for $10,000.
Yep.
Treasurer financial software replacement, which
Yep.
is targeted at $75,000. Water tank mixer that Pete just referred to at $26,000.
Yep.
Water lead service line, that was what we just discussed, 125, which just is a round number.
I just want to clarify, Capital did not make a decision on that.
Correct. They had a lot of questions.
Okay.
That was not.
Personally wrote this was awful.
Well, it just says that the Capital recommends, and we did not make a decision. We were waiting further information.
Did you look into who wrote that?
I think they should be fired.
The chair is going to have to speak to you from that night. And then wastewater mission 123 monitoring system for $10,000. So this is a replacement of the monitoring systems, or the monitoring systems at Arch and River Street pump stations, which are the ones that have the most comm loss, false alarms, which I think we estimated fiscal year to date, annualized was $5,000 at least in false alarm overtime.
Every year.
That was just in 5 months. So extrapolated for an annualized frequency,
Pay it
would have
once,
paid for
yeah.
the one because it's 5,000 each. So if we do 2, we do 10 now, it may almost be fully funded by avoided alarms this year. And
True.
then you're not paying them next year. So that's just since he's here, just real quick, that's why.
Comcast with each.
I didn't even think of the operating cost savings too. That's right, you put it in there. I forgot about that.
Right.
That's part of it.
$100 a year.
That's part of the 5, I should say, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it was only 38.4 of overtime, but
Yeah,
it's in the ballpark.
But you're still talking about a $5,000, 5 to 10.
And those are the most frequent and most critical pump stations. Most frequent false alarms, right? And most critical infrastructure in terms of
Right,
the
so-
scale of risk and lines.
So the ones that we're gonna hammer with are comm loss, and why we're getting those is because the phone lines are old analog lines. So Monday we had bad weather, Friday we had bad weather, I got comm loss. I got 5, well, total of 5 of them, 1 though was during my shift.
And if we ignore them and there's a problem, well, that's not a problem we want to pay for.
No.
So going and checking is critical, even though it's a unfortunate wasted time of the individual's time off and of town's money.
Well,
So,
there-
so anyway, that's the driver behind that. It's a very low investment. Those, yeah, There's plenty of free cash to fund all of these things, and/or we have enterprise fund funding to take the enterprise items from, either way, from a funding source standpoint. I feel like, oh, and then we have cemetery commission bylaw we could put into effect. We have a few other, housekeeping items that can wait or can be done, so if we're having one. But these are the financial impact big ones that are out there. Is the finance committee, well, I guess, is the board interested in seeing a draft of this for the next meeting? With all of these on it, at least, to start.
I would be,
Yeah, likewise.
yes.
Finance committee in favor of seeing all of these?
Sure, at this point, I'd like to see them. I have no problem with most of them, with the exception of that 121,000 with more questions.
Okay. Anything other than that one that spurs any detailed questions, we can bring that information for next meeting beyond what we may already have right now for any of you?
I'm on Capitol, so I've seen them all a million times.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have some detail to these. We'll probably be able to answer most questions. So. Okay. And we'll target mid to late February STM. We'll see what we can do for timing to get it in.
If the moderator isn't available, I nominate Linda again.
Perfect. She'll be ecstatic.
I'll see her Wednesday night and let her know.
There is probably some runway to run into March if we absolutely had to, because March something is the deadline for the SRF. I don't want to get there, but
Right.
if we go that route, but there's a little buffer in there. Okay, that's STM. The other this year is the culvert project, but that's not, that's already funded. Something that's already funded.
Yeah.
All right, anything finance has for us?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Motion to adjourn the joint meeting, continue the select board meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Long night.
Thanks, gentlemen.
As I look through what we have left, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. And if there's anything either of you want to really talk about tonight, please speak up. But you can pass over the feasibility for town hall. You pass over the bylaw draft, the bylaw and the. Let me start over.
Personnel policies and procedures manual, both of those.
Yes, the bylaw draft and the policies and procedures for personnel. If you guys are good passing those tonight.
Sure.
For now, coming back.
Yep.
Okay. Bid documents for WheeLock we do have to do, but did you have something else, or was that?
No, I was just going to say, the personnel policies, there's going to be some new updates to that coming anyways. We have some additional language that we're going to add out of a later meeting, some suggested language.
Okay. Will we have that for our next meeting?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So the last two items, I believe, if I've noted correctly, is the bid docs for WheeLock and the activities coordinator screening committee, which we really should do both. We have the applicants, it's closed. So review the bid docs for Wheelock Street culvert replacement project. So there was a capital request for this. They did review it and recommend it be done ASAP based on the feedback that everything gets more expensive, and our engineering firm has recommended getting out to bid as soon as we can from that standpoint, from a cost standpoint. And we hope, enough grant funding for the whole thing. So, I know there's a note in there about some more call-outs and stuff, but I don't think that's anything that was affecting our decision now, right?
No, there's just some comments from the Army Corps of Engineers that they worked into the plans, the final version that's going live Wednesday if you approve. And just the corresponding notes in the manual was really it. All the contractual information has not changed. So we're looking at I believe a bid due date of February 2nd. So about a 3.5 week time period for the bid.
If either of you have anything specific, please feel free. I'm just scrolling through and see if anything I had noted or not.
No, and so I did not go through all of the, notes about the field classification, the remarks about, density and, compaction. There's just so much there. But I did review the plans, and they seem fairly straightforward. It's not a huge project, although you wouldn't know that looking at the bid specs.
True story.
All 382 pages of it.
Yeah, I'm not scrolling through all that right this second, just some of the highlights.
Yeah.
As we noted at your last meeting, this is the first time that we have built to the state standards for active stream crossings.
Right.
So a lot of this feels
It's new.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
For what we consider a culvert, but it's because we're trying to meet the state's new standards for this, which is why the state's funding the project.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's because it's late and I'm tired, but or it's all blurring together. What is the bid alternate versus the base? What's the alternate? 'Cause
So
it sounds like it's
they're prioritizing
more of the.
just in case. They're prioritizing one of the culverts over the
Okay,
other.
that is what it is. I
That's
was
all
going to
they're
say
doing.
because the alternate looks like the other culvert.
That's exactly it.
Okay, all right.
So
I'm
just
not
because of how
wrong.
volatile the bidding environment had been in the past few
If
months,
they can only get one done.
they just didn't want to risk if you get back bid results that are too wild that we can't move forward on the project. So the engineer recommended just let's ensure we get the most crucial culvert replaced, and then
Okay.
if everything works correctly, the bid alternate 2 is just the second culvert.
Okay.
There's really no way to reduce any work on any one particular. There was no other way to structure it, right?
Right.
It
Yeah.
felt weird to have an alternate on this project, so I
Exactly.
think,
Yeah.
and then I'm reading through it, going, it looks like
It
the
looks
other
like another.
culvert.
It is.
That's exactly it.
It is the other culvert, isn't it? I just it felt weird. I want to make sure I wasn't missing something. So, and what was the completion timeline? I don't remember that. In here somewhere. I know the bid docs, but there's a timeline to have it all done, right? Commence work on or before the date and notice to proceed. Time scope and 0410 of the general bid. Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah, I can't find it either.
No, okay. I think because that's the bid form they're referencing, so it must be a fill-in field, not a set time. It must be what the bidder says it will take,
Yeah.
right? That's what I'm guessing, because that's a section 00410 is a section of the bid form. It's not a section of the bid package, the spec package, bid spec.
Just going through the special or the general conditions.
Okay. While he's looking for that, any concerns, or are we, questions, concerns, or are we good to move forward?
No, I'm good to move forward.
Okay. The timeline's not going to change my opinion either.
No.
It just
No.
was curiosity. I
Yeah.
didn't
No.
see it,
No.
so. But maybe it is literally just they will provide timeline because,
Yeah, based on contractor.
yeah, and time and availability and all that.
Yeah.
And there's permitting and all that that's been worked on already and stuff.
Yeah, I
So.
thought it was February, if I remember
Was it?
seeing it.
Oh, that's the due date for the bid docs,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
thinking like completion of the project.
Oh, right,
That's
right,
what I'm wondering, and I
right.
don't think it's in there.
Yeah, I'm finding all of the references to being able to adjust the contract time, so I agree. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be based on the submission.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it lists it. I just found it in the bid doc there, 00410. Would someone like to make a motion?
Hold on. Yeah, if I could wrap my head around the language you need.
Just
approval to release the bid documents.
Got it.
For Wheelock Street.
Make a motion to release the bid documents for the Wheelock Street Culvert Improvement Project.
I will second.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And last but not least for tonight, appointment of Activities Coordinator Preliminary Screening Committee members.
You appointed 3 of your 5 members.
Yep, these are the last two.
And Paula was making a recommendation to appoint these 2 individuals to serve on that committee.
Glad.
Submitted interest somehow.
Right.
Okay.
Through the Senate, yep.
I just didn't see.
Yeah, she was
Didn't
looking.
see
She was looking for active members, and she was going to solicit
as a
that
priority. Yeah.
as a priority.
Yep. Okay.
No sense in delaying it. I will make a motion that we appoint Hilda Warden and Janice Fuller to the Activities Coordinator Preliminary Screening Committee.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think that does it for tonight. Yes?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.